As you may be aware, Nintendo of America and the Pokemon Company are currently being sued by a 34-year-old Iowa man by the name of Kyle Owens. Kyle Owens is alleging that the Pokemon Company and Nintendo of America have denied him erroneously the title of Pokemon Professor. If you're not aware of what Pokemon Professor is, it's effectively a certification that you can get from the Pokemon Company that gives you permission to be considered for volunteerism on behalf of the Pokemon Company and Nintendo of America. It is a no-cost certification. You don't have to pay anything. You take a test, they pay for the background check, and you get your certification. And after that, you are allowed to volunteer on behalf, and you're allowed to, with their permission, host official Pokemon tournaments. Now, he passed the test, allegedly. Now, there's some contention there about whether or not he did pass the test, if he got the perfect 100 that he claims he did, if he got 80%. That's neither here nor there, because the actual alleged reason, the actual reason put forward for why he was being denied was not about the test. It was about the background check. In the background check, it came forward that Kyle Owens has a felony on his record, 3 misdemeanors that have yet to be tried in court. And why haven't they been tried in court? Because he has an arrest warrant out for him in the state of Pennsylvania because he has failed to appear in court. Now, he has responded to both of my videos where I talked about him with a level of upsetness with it and stated that maybe I need to reach out to a lawyer to explain the law to me. So I did. Kirk!
Hey,
How you doing, Kirk?
fantastic.
Now, would you like to go ahead and voir dire yourself to the audience about your legal expertise?
Sure. Hey, folks, my name is Kirk Sigmund. I've been on this program before. I'm primarily a tech lawyer, so I work with a lot of video game companies. Just actually got back from a conference in Poland where I was speaking on video game law to people, lots of companies over there, CD Projekt Red and folks, they're fantastic. And my specialty generally is on the tech side of things, but I've dealt with a lot of stuff like this before. So, for example, a lot of tech companies end up dealing with what we'll call vexatious litigants, difficult people. And of course, I'm also very familiar with some of these issues just because I help run a law firm. And as part of that, kind of my gig is knowing the difference between, say, volunteers and employees and everything else. So this is an area I'm very familiar with, for better or for worse, and I have a lot of opinions. So I'm hopefully you can provide some insight.
But to clarify, as he said there, he is a tech lawyer, he's an IP and a patent lawyer. He's not necessarily an employment lawyer, but you do have more than a 2-year degree in legal studies, correct?
As far as I know, well, I might have to go back to school a little bit.
Well, from my understanding, you have an engineering degree and then a law degree.
Yeah,
So,
tech lawyers are required to have that, so.
an intelligent person that knows how to do research and understands basic common sense, at the very least.
I'd like to think so.
Okay, that's going to come into play here. And as you said, it's just to give you your little bit of plug up front. You did recently start your own law firm. From my understanding, from what you said to me, it is a IP/patent law firm that is primarily focused on video game law.
Yep. Yep. We do a little bit of everything in terms
Yeah.
of tech, but we all our passions in video games. Generally speaking, what we do is we've transitioned to a smaller firm so we can service, small guys, medium guys, indies. That's what's a big part for me is being able to handle, smaller game clients. So the usual pitch, not to be too pitchy about it, is that if anyone wants to talk about their questions, I always talk to people for free. I'm running my own law firm now. I don't charge for hours on a phone like people do. So if you have questions, you can always reach out to me, and I'm always down to talk about crazy people on the internet, as you can tell.
I was genuinely after I sent you the email asking if you want to be a part of this. I was like, was this overstepping? And then
No, no,
you
I love
seemed
this.
very excited about it. So I'm like, I'm happy you're enjoying it.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you're not aware, because I did interview him previously in relation to the Power World case, Kirk Sigmund was one of the lawyers that was indirectly involved with the case between Power World and Nintendo. So go check out that video if you want. But we're going to get into this. We're going to get into the beginning. Now, there were a lot of stuff that I have included in this slideshow. Organizing it in a way that makes a lot of sense is not easy because not a lot of the things that he says make sense. So we're going to start with some of the public things that he has stated because I feel like it is probably relevant to his court cases, the public statements that he has made. Is it true? This is a question I ask later in the slides, but I'll ask it now. Is my intuition correct that when you are involved in a lawsuit and you make public statements on your public Facebook page, those things can potentially be used against you in court?
Oh, for sure. I'll give you an example. I mean, there was an instance in which I had a case where the company put stuff on their Facebook and press release that actually affirmatively harmed their case. Like if you put something out there in public and if it's relevant, I mean, my God, it can be out there. It can be part of the case just as much as anything else.
Okay, so I don't have a law degree, as Kyle wanted to point out, but my intuition was correct about that.
Yeah.
So here is one of the first posts he made that I saw when I was doing research. Now, there are a lot more posts that go back a lot later than this that we will get into later just to answer the question of what is a vexatious litigant, and is Kyle's picture next to it? But the first one here, just I wanted to bring it up. This is something that a slide that will come up later because I feel like it's relevant to his mental state at the very least. Is his active contempt of the KO administration. I'll get into that. The second one is one that you actually pulled some of the records for and were able to get a lot of the more information for of his lawsuit against Spoon River College. He is trying to claim that he has been discriminated against based on both his age and also that women have been discriminated against based on their gender. But we have that over here, and this we talked about briefly. But essentially, what he's saying here, and this is information that you pulled from your Pacer account. This
Right.
is what he's saying here is that because the school is not hosting, this is a community college, is not hosting open tryouts for the basketball team, that and because they're staffing up their basketball team largely, or staffing up's not even the right word because student athletes are not employees, they're volunteers effectively, which is something that Kyle doesn't seem to understand the difference of. But essentially, because they're manning their team with mostly high school graduates, and high school graduates tend to be younger than 34-year-old Kyle Owens, that he has been discriminated against based on age because they are not allowing him the opportunity to try out. And this document that you found is one from the Department of Education that is essentially saying that
You have
no,
no case.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
saying no. If you want to elaborate on that a little bit, what this is saying here.
Sure. So the funny part about this is that he includes this with his complaint. So the worst document he could possibly include is included as an attachment to his complaint, saying the exact opposite all over again. But the basic idea is that he seems to have reached out to the Department of Education with a complaint saying, hey, look, I was discriminated against, or rather, in this weird way, women were discriminated against for some reason, but also I was discriminated against on age basis. And so the former one, I mean, both of them, the DOE is very nice to him in some ways. They go through and actually try to address these things. On the first one, they go, look, the Title IX doesn't work like that. There can be different teams. It's essentially we want to see parity. It doesn't have to be, as we talked before, like one football team for men, one football team for women. It doesn't have to be parity like that. There has to be some equal distribution
It could
of
be
efforts,
football
right?
and field hockey,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
and that's often
wrestling
how it
and
is.
soccer, and it's
Exactly.
as long as there's an equal number of opportunities, the opportunities don't have to be exactly this, essentially.
And the funny part about this, as we were talking about before, this doesn't affect him at all. Like even either way, if they are, whether or not they are discriminating, which I don't think they are, at least as far as the DOE is concerned. uh, I mean, it doesn't affect him one bit. Like whether or not
Yeah,
they do it, it's a quintessential example, and we'll probably get into this more about Chat GPT drafting, where it's very clear that a lot of his complaints are produced with Chat GPT, which are
hmm
probabilistically coming up with sentences and words and things like that.
yeah,
So they're going to like the common argument of discrimination, despite the fact it has nothing to do with him.
yeah. And and that seems to be a lot of his legal cases are based around the word discrimination. But I don't
Yes.
fully understand if he understands what discrimination is. It's
Anything that doesn't let
hurting
him
your
do what he wants to
feelings
do.
is not discrimination. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I don't fully understand if I don't fully believe that he understands when he is being discriminated against because of some sort of protected class, and when it's about is as a person that people
Right.
don't want to be around. Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, allegation two is the age related one, saying that, and allegation one is the sex one. We talked about earlier. He effectively does not have standing to sue on behalf of the women of that college because he
Yeah.
is not a woman of that college. He does not even identify as a woman of that college. There's nothing there that would make him a victim of Title IX. He received no damages from that, so that allegation should be thrown out the window just on standing.
Right.
Um, Allegation two, you might have a little bit more of a case there, but not. You can squint at it funny, but it's not going to likely stand up to the legal pressure.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Allegation two basically boils down to the idea that he says you're discriminating me based on age because your team is full. You didn't still let me try out, and it's because I'm too old. Which
yes,
he sort of averts this idea that they're mostly recruiting from high school teams, young guys who are just out of high school going into this program, and that may very well be true. But the DOE understandably says, look, discriminating based upon educational level, like freshman, sophomore, whatever. That's not necessarily based on age because it's not actually tied to your age. Now,
yeah,
granted, we might quibble about that, but the reality is what they're really getting at is there's no space, right? This is
yeah,
like you said, volunteer, fun program. There are probably plenty of fun teams you could go join that are not affiliated with this school.
yeah,
And the reality is we're just full and there's no tryouts to be had because we don't need anybody. So sorry.
yeah. And right here is the email from the the actual coach that he reached out to, where there's no mention of age, there's no mention of anything else. There's no even real ability to tell that Kyle mentioned how old he was. He might have in the original email that he did not part as part of this case, but it says with having a full committed roster for 2023 to 2024 seasons, I will not be hosting tryouts.
Yeah.
That's if you're staffed up, you're staffed up. You don't need more people. And
Yeah.
as far as I understand, corporations and companies and privately owned entities and even government owned entities are not required to hire beyond their staffing requirement.
So I'm quite not sure if there's any restrictions on it in terms of like obligations beyond that, but especially in this case where we're talking a volunteer team where,
Yeah.
and let's be pragmatic for a second. This is a small school. It's probably not got the most funding in the world. I mean, this is probably something done for fun for the students there that, they're not necessarily
Yeah.
competing in the MLB here. This is a small
Yeah.
baseball team in a small college, or a community college, I think. And they don't have to do nothing. Like this is discretionary. This is I wouldn't call it unnecessary. It's valuable in some sense, but they're not required to pull people on just for funsies. Like they
Yeah.
could probably not afford them.
Yeah. He's not entitled to what he thinks he's entitled to.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. And then number 5 is the one that I wanted to throw in there, where he is suing a dead man, which means he's not suing the dead man. He is suing the estate of the dead man, which means he is suing the family of the dead man for allegedly housing discrimination. I'm not sure what the housing discrimination is based around. I'm not fully sure of the details of this case. What I do know is that the man is dead. That in several of the comments and posts that Kyle Owens has made, he has claimed that he is suing people out of righteousness and out of wanting to, quote, put the fear of God into these people so that they will not act in the way that he finds unsuitable. Well, the fear of God is in this man, because if you believe in God, he's up there with them. So I don't know what the accomplishment here is. All he is doing is effectively delaying the grieving process of the family while trying to claim some moral high ground. And in my non-legal opinion, that's a really hard thing to do, is sue a dead man and claim the moral high ground.
And that's the sticker here is, I mean, look, there very well may be something with him and the dead guy, honestly, but
Yeah.
we don't know. We were not going to know because the man passed away. And the reality of it is this extraordinary claim that he was discriminated against and deserves money. I mean, it's a big claim to be making against any sort of estate like that, especially when you could have made that as claim probably before the man passed away. So it gets a little questionable, right? You begin to wonder what the real motivation here, if it's not just money, if it's just trying to, piss off
Yeah.
the family. I don't know.
My intuition, my assumption, based on my 31 years of knowing people, is that this is about the money, and the
It's
moral high ground is what he's using to justify either to the people paying attention or to himself, so he doesn't feel like a bad person. Because no one wants to feel like a bad person, but there's very little that this man can say that would make him not feel like a bad person without some mental gymnastics. And we will get into that later, because I want to keep
there's a lot of
pointing out
that.
I want to keep pointing out the fact that he is a 34-year-old man.
Far past some of this nonsense. Let's put it that way.
Oh, Kirk, I added some slides to the end of this.
Oh boy.
I added some slides that are going to be upsetting to you.
Oh gosh.
Quick editor's addendum here. We made the decision to keep this video that's going on the main page, Running Game Entertainment, to be specifically more related to the stuff that is related to the legal analysis of both the Pokemon Nintendo case, the Pokemon Professor case, as well as some of the other legal cases. And basically, this video is going to be the one that talks more about the legal analysis of all the stuff Kyle Owens is doing, a lot of the stuff, the trouble that he might get into, and some of the other things that are going on that have legal analysis associated with them. But I also included during this conversation a lot of slides that aren't necessarily about these lawsuits and are more so just things that Kyle Owens has said on public forums, be it his Facebook page, be it my comments, that are troubling to hear, and maybe indictments on him on a more personal level. But we wanted to split those two, so that video is going to be going up tomorrow on my side channel, Runga Extra. I'll link it in the iCard. I'll also link it at the end of the video. So please, if you're interested in watching that and kind of just interested in us going in on him a little bit in a way that is kind of entertaining and kind of funny, please subscribe to Runga Extra and you'll see that video when it goes live. And now we're going to get to the main one. The main one of that started this whole thing is him suing the Pokemon Company International and Nintendo of America. He's claiming $341,000. I'm actually going to skip forward to a slide here in a second to explain how he arrived at $341,000 because it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, the first question here is he is claiming that this is tortious interference with prospective business advantage. Does a private entity, does a company have a legal obligation to give out what is effectively not even, but would amount to in the way that he wants to use it, franchise rights to someone? Because to me, this is the same thing as if he went to McDonald's, applied for McDonald's franchise, and then they ran a background check on him and said, "Ooh,
Yeah,
no,"
we're not touching
and
that. Yeah.
didn't give him the franchise. Because the Pokemon Professor thing is allows you to volunteer, but he has stated in many public posts that he wants to use it as a money making endeavor, so that he can use it to host
Exactly.
Pokemon tournaments and make money, and that is the business advantage that he's being interfered with. But does any company, but does Nintendo of America or the Pokemon Company have a legal obligation to hand out franchise rights?
Of course not. I mean, that's one of the biggest thing here is, granted, we could come up with a hypothetical where there would be discrimination, right? We could imagine a universe in which Pokemon's not giving, the Pokemon Professor title to some minority, and sure, maybe that's something. That
Yeah,
I don't think that's happening, and that's not happening
an
here.
actual
It's a
protected class.
like an actual like a group of people where it's like, okay, that's a very clear distinction, even though it's voluntary, like they're being discriminatory as hell. At minimum, it's a PR nightmare. Here, we're talking about a guy where, and you mentioned it at the top, he passes this test, which is onerous. He's kind of bragged about doing that. But then they say, hey, as part of this, we have to do this background check. The background check comes up showing that he has multiple warrant out for his arrest for failure to appear on felony charges, including fighting and violence. And then he says, well, those don't count somehow, as if the Pokemon Company is supposed to decide retroactively, oh, well, it's okay. We'll trust you on that statement. Everyone
Yeah,
who's been charged with these things are going to say it's not that big of a
yeah,
deal.
yeah,
But like, they're understandably going to respond and say, look, we don't want someone like you running a tournament full of kids or adults for that matter, but especially
yeah,
kids.
yeah.
Like,
We don't want
there's a
you
safety
representing
issue.
us. You
Yeah.
being a front facing figure for us is damaging to our reputation.
And one, again, speaking of the chat GPTification of his claims, I mean, what he's really talking about here, what he's trying to allude to is what's called tortious interference with contract. It's a weird thing where you could say, hey, someone's messing with my ability to do like a contract with somebody else, like they're just kind of screwing with my business. That's not happening here. The Pokemon Company is not obligated to give him business opportunities. They're not obligated to license him anything. And there's been some rumors floating around. I mean, he on the four corners of what he says, the big deal for him is he wants to make a business where he makes money throwing tournaments and everything else. I mean, let's not forget the fact that these Pokemon Professor positions also get you access to, I think, what is it, limited edition cards and things like that that inherently have some value, and just get access, right? It's like a
Yeah,
thank you for doing what you do. Their rarity creates value in them, at least in the Pokemon card world. So he's probably angling towards that as well. It's like, hey, if I do this, at minimum, I'm getting these cool cards and I can flip them on eBay or something.
yeah.
Like, he somehow thinks he's entitled to this money from the Pokemon Company. I don't quite know why.
Yeah, I mean, he did leave that in a comment. I will get to that here in a second. I want to ask the last question on here. I'll switch that slide, and then we'll get to that comment because I feel like your brain's gonna break. You're an intelligent man. It just this was legitimately what I was thinking this whole time. Was like I I consider myself an intelligent person. I have a level of intelligence that's at least average, maybe a little bit above average, and there's a level of stupid that I can't process because of that. And I needed you here because you are also an intelligent man. You have an engineering degree and a law degree. Probably more intelligent than me, definitely more intelligent than Kyle, definitely more intelligent than me. Let's be honest.
I don't know about
Uh,
that, but
I wanted to give myself a little braggadocio there, but I don't have an engineering degree. But you are also a lawyer, so you are specifically trained to deal with stupid. So you
yeah.
might have a better chance at this.
There's
Uh,
a lot of this that comes out in this world, and not this bad usually, but it does
yeah.
happen.
So one of the things he also has here is breach of implied contract. Was the implied contract breached if it was due to him failing to pass a background check that they made known that he would have to pass?
I just don't know where even an implied contract could exist because the Pokemon Company, for what it's worth, their communications are fantastic. They say very clearly in emails, which he attaches to his complaint, hey, look, in one of the emails where they congratulate him on passing the test, they say, look, it's conditioned on a background check. You have to sign this contract saying this one particular company is allowed to do
I
it.
can find that email.
He signs it, and then the next email specifically says, I think it says he's failed the test, which is probably just imprecision on their part. But what it's really saying is, hey, look, your background check came bad. We don't discuss background checks. However, uh, you have failed it. We don't want to give you Pokemon Professor. That's it. Like it's very clear. There's no subtlety to what they're doing.
Let's see if we can find that on
Oh
that
yeah, it's
email,
tons
that
of
one right
paperwork
now.
in this
That, oh my
whole
God,
filing.
56 slides. Okay.
Yeah.
Delivery status notification failure. I'm
Oh, this is when
writing
he's
to
sending them a
demand
threat.
settlement. Yeah, like that. I
Yeah.
feel like that's not. I mean, again, I'm not a. Is that the right language to use in your initial contact with someone? That you're writing to demand settlement? Is that
You
the
can
right
phrase it however you
word?
want. I've done some friendlier letters than others. Sometimes you're very snippy. I mean, what he's doing here, the quintessential sending an email to everybody he can find an email for and being pissy about it and demanding money, it's not a good look. I mean, the problem is you oftentimes, if you have a real claim like this, you actually do want to get a lawyer involved. Say, look, I'm serious about this. I've had someone vet my claim. I believe I actually have a claim. You owe me money. And then that happens all the time. No one wants to go to court. It's unreliable. Sometimes it's time consuming. So it's not, you can use whatever language you want, but in this case, it's the hallmark example of just a guy trying to extort money out of somebody because he's got some perceived slight and he's not represented by lawyers, nor has he talked to anyone but ChatGPT. So it's just a
Mhm.
bad look.
It does not seem great to me.
No.
Um, let's see if we can find that specific. There's so many. What is you looked at, what is the relevance of all these FedEx orders? What
I
is the
think he's
legal
trying to
relevance?
show how he sent them demand letters and documents. So he created this package in a
Here it
Google
is.
Drive and also printed it out of all this information that he also included in the complaint. I think for some reason he thinks it's relevant that he sent a settlement offer. In fact, sometimes you don't want to disclose that in court. Like it's okay for you to keep confidential the fact that you tried to arrange for settlement because you don't want to
Look like you're in it for the money.
bias the case. Yeah, honestly, in some ways you don't want to bias the case. Yeah, you don't want to be selfish. I don't
Yep.
know why he thinks this is relevant. Again, it's the Chat GPT weird nonsense he's trying to pull here.
Yeah. And here we have it's on page 25. This is the letter from Pokemon. Hello, congratulations on achieving and passing score in basic professor exam. Before we can welcome you, we need you to complete our background check process. Please keep an eye, please blah blah blah, process within 30 days, etc., etc.
Yeah, so very
Uh
clear. Hey, there's a background check required. Here's the forms. You got to fill this out.
let's see down
And we get into the
to
fun part where the he includes his own background check information, which thankfully is redacted. There's nothing in
yeah.
here that's not public, by the way.
He has publicly posted his address multiple.
Yeah,
I
it's he's
not that, and when you get into some of the stuff I'm going to show you later, that's really not a smart decision. Here they send him the email on page 31 that they have completed the background check. Do do
yeah, a lot
do.
of inane things he shouldn't probably bother including unless absolutely necessary. But
Yeah.
he seems to think it's relevant.
Oh,
Uh, yeah,
and
there's his
here
background, part of his background check at
there's
least.
his background check where it says charge disorderly conduct, engage in fighting, felony and misdemeanor record search type felony, misdemeanor record search, disorderly conduct, warrant issued for failure to appear, warrant issued 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 failure to appear,
Yeah, it's
disorderly conduct, engage in fighting, and mind you, he has a felony on his record,
Yeah,
so
it's such a bad look. So basically, to think about this, if you're looking at this as the Pokemon Company, understandably go, A, there's a charge of felt we don't I mean, who knows the disposition? I wasn't able to find that information quite yet. But he's not showing up to court, so it doesn't seem to be closed, and the state's pissed off at him enough to go try to hunt him down. For example, if he gets pulled for a traffic violation in that state, he's going straight to jail. There's a warrant out for his arrest.
yeah.
This is not a
So
guy you want running events.
So I did pull a little bit more of that. The warrant for his arrest is in Pennsylvania. He's in the state of Iowa. He claims it's a non-extraditory offense. The three misdemeanors that the warrant is for, the warrant is for the misdemeanors. The felony had its disposition. He was found guilty.
Done.
He spent 5 years in jail.
There you go.
Yeah. But the misdemeanors are destruction of property, effectively. It's more legal words than that, but destruction of property, fighting, and maintaining, transferring, or repairing an offensive weapon.
Oh, I
Which
remember that,
also he has a felony on his record.
yeah.
I I have a gun. It's right there. I don't have a felony on my record. If
Yeah.
I did, what am I not allowed to have, Kirk?
Oh, well, it might be a weapon like that.
It
Yeah.
might be an offensive weapon, yeah. Um,
Uh,
so
like,
even in that crime, like because I saw he posted right after I released my final video, he posted a 19-minute video that has since been taken down. But I did see one of the comments that was left on that, and according to that comment, which I cannot verify as true or false, but according to that comment, he has previously posted videos saying that he fled the state of Pennsylvania so that he would not have to face those charges, which makes sense because if he has three misdemeanors and one of them is a direct violation of the restrictions that are placed on him for his felony, he's probably going back to jail.
And let's put it this way. Let's zoom out for a second. If you're the Pokemon company, you don't need
Thank you for
like
continuing to redirect this to the Pokemon Company because
no, but
I am
I'm
just
just saying
shit
like
talking him. Yeah,
like if you're not judge, jury, and executioner. Your job is not to adjudicate how valid
yeah.
any of this is. You just see this and you go, I see violence, I see weapons, I see felonies, I see like a warrant out for this man's arrest.
And I see
Done,
a company
right?
that is a company that is incredibly litigious, and a company that is so incredibly protective of their IP and especially their family friendly nature
Right.
that having that is a part of their face. That is Nintendo, for all of its goods and bads, for all the its positives and its negatives, is a family friendly company to an
Right.
extreme degree, to a very extreme degree. Um, so not wanting someone that has the felony was for forgery. It was a non-violent felony, but the misdemeanors are violent crimes. And either
Yeah.
way, they don't want to put a felon in a front-facing position. Now, whether or
Exactly.
not like I'm personally pro give people a second chance. He seemed to have gotten his second chance to an extent and decided to make decisions with it that I would not have.
Right.
Um, but it's ultimately they don't have any obligation to follow that, as in my understanding.
No, and I mean, at the end of the day, like it's their discretion. They probably have a veritable line of people who would love to be a Pokemon professor, if only because, again, they might be handing out these valuable cards. It might be a place of prestige. Some people just like to volunteer like that. So
Yeah,
they're not in a deficit of people. They don't need to take this felon with a violent record and a warrant out for his arrest, if we were to believe these records, and put him in a position of authority. And he mentions at some point, I noticed in either a comment or something like that, that he's only looking to really do events for adults. Even then, you don't want him representing your company. Like, whether
yeah.
or not kids are involved, it's a bad look for your IP. This is a family-friendly IP. You want it to be friendly. Having someone like this affiliated with you is a reputational hazard. You just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. And it's again, private company. This is not a government funded agency. This is not anyone that falls under those extra restrictions that happen when you were receiving government financial assistance. This is a
Right. And,
private company that's not even technically based in America. Now, Nintendo of America is based in, I think, Washington,
right.
but Nintendo and of itself and Pokemon Company are based in Tokyo. Um, he claims that because they are doing business in the United States, that they are beholden to United States law. Which, regard, assuming that that theory is true, that because of that they are beholden to United States law, which I think they might be, it makes sense. The United States laws allows you to deny people a job based on a felony,
Yeah, I mean, and
even
we
if
might
this
quibble about
was a
like
paid position.
yeah, like we might quibble. Maybe, if this was a wildly different situation, if like it's an apartment complex rejecting it, maybe we might say, hey, we want to give someone a second chance. Just his
Yeah,
felony shouldn't prevent him from having
yeah,
housing, yada, yada, yada. That's not what it. This is a volunteer position where you are acting essentially as like a referee, rulemaker, judge,
a
authoritative
representative.
figure. Yeah,
Yeah,
of the Pokemon Company. So during TCG games, like they don't have to take you. This is not inherent to something you need for your life. At most, he just wants it, and he's explicit about this, to make money. And you
mhm,
can make money a bazillion different ways. They do not have to involve Pokemon cards.
yep. And here I found the one where it says it's 41. This is this rejection letter. It says you scored 80% and failed the basic professor exam, but that is not even where it says he was denied. Where it says that he was denied was the second paragraph. Hello, we regret to inform you that your application to the professor program has been denied after reviewing the results of your background check.
Yeah, and I think 80% is the cutoff. So my guess is this is just some administrative snafu where they're like, oh, if we're rejecting someone, we just
It
adjust
probably,
the number
yeah,
to 80 so they auto
yeah.
fail.
But
Like it's
even that's not
silly.
even the reason they said they denied it.
No, it's
Is the thing
not.
I find
Yeah.
interesting. They said, yeah, you failed this exam, but one of the complaints he has is that he's not allowed to take the exam again. But that's because that background check doesn't fucking change.
Yeah, yeah.
That
You
time
doing good
has
at this exam doesn't
passed.
change
That
anything.
history book is written. They're not going to let you waste their time anymore taking this exam, knowing that you will never pass that background check because
Exactly.
that felony is on your record.
Like at the end of the day, you knowing a lot about the Pokemon trading card game rules will not change the fact that you have a
Completely
warrant out for your
irrelevant.
arrest. That might be
Yeah.
something you need to go fix firsthand. And
Yeah.
granted, you can get stuff expunged for your record. There may be a possibility he can go get some of this fixed, but that's not what he's doing here. Apparently, he's gone to courts for the exact wrong reason. Ironically, he's going to the courts when he should be going to an entirely different court in a different state to actually show up for the criminal case that's charged against him. But that's a different story.
He has time to file 75 lawsuits, but directly says he doesn't have time to travel from
Mhm.
Iowa to Pennsylvania to appear
Like,
for a misdemeanor case. I have a feeling it has nothing to do with time and everything to do based on my assumptions and my opinion, Kyle, because I know you're watching. My opinion and assumption would be, especially if I were in the jury, is that you didn't show up because you were guilty and you didn't want that to come forward. Now that is
he's smart enough to
entirely
know
my
not to show
opinion,
up.
Kyle. Yeah,
Like I'll say he's smart enough to know that there's a reason why you don't enter into that state, and
yeah.
it's not
If you're
because he
not
just doesn't
guilty,
like
you go to
Pennsylvania.
court. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania's a beautiful state. I'm from Pennsylvania. It's a great
I
state.
mean, it's
If
fantastic.
you
Like,
want to sue me, Kyle, it's gonna happen in Pennsylvania.
actually, that would be, oh God, that'd be kind of funny in some ways, but
Right?
that's a
That would
whole
be
different
so funny.
story.
That would be so. He tries to sue me. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
but we're having the court case moved to Pennsylvania, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, sure, we could go to court. You can win this
you
case,
got to
but
show up in person, sir.
the marshals are gonna be outside. So
It's like
this,
FYI.
I will put your, yeah, I'll put your damages into your prison cantina account. It'll be great.
Oh
It'll
God,
be
yeah,
fine.
you'll have so
You'll
much
be the
many
richest
packets of
dude there.
ramen.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
so much ramen. No one's gonna
Oh my
mess with
God.
you. Definitely not with some of the other stuff you say later in the slides that I'm gonna get to.
I'm very excited.
I don't think you should be. I'm not. I was very upset. I
Oh
should not.
God.
It's yeah. Again, getting back to this, he claims that it was negligent misrepresentation. As far as I know, the only representation that has come to him from the Pokemon Company and Nintendo of America was them saying he was denied because the background check,
Yeah.
and that is not negligent because, at the very least, they are operating with all the information that they reasonably should have.
Yeah,
Correct?
and honestly, like no companies are not required to tell you like what I should, the truth. Granted, there's like false advertising law and things like that,
Yeah.
but the reality of it is they can make mistakes like anybody else because they are run by humans as well. And
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, they are correct. He failed the background check. The fact that they included in their email some asinine thing about the test qualifications does not change that fact whatsoever.
Yeah.
It is at best a typographical error that, or a stupid systematic error
Yeah.
that does not change the fundamental fact that
They
he's
they might have a boilerplate
eligible.
form that says
Honestly, yeah.
80% because they don't want people to feel bad if they got 20 or 30 or 40%. So it says
Right.
80% because they have no legal obligation to tell you the truth. But the reason they stated that he was denied had nothing to do with that.
And realistically, knowing how some of these companies operate, this is probably some poor secretary who has a form letter. They probably just missed that one line because they're moving fast, they're busy, they don't have time to be dealing with this. And they don't know they're talking to a vexatious, problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
from their perspective, I'm sure that person feels terrible. It's not their fault. These things happen, but boy, he seems to import a lot of importance into it.
Yeah. But moving on from there, because that goes with the basis of the case. This was one that I did want to bring up. What was I? Oh, yes. This is where he states some of the lawsuits. This is also where he doxes himself because I will have to blur this out. But he posts his address on his public
Yeah.
Facebook page. Not the smartest decision. To do. If you already remember. Oh, yes, here it is. He directly says in his post, if you would like to settle before I file the court case, I will settle for 1/4 of the claim. Now, you said not too long ago that it's not always a great idea to publicly announce attempts to reach settlement or to send settlement demands ahead of time because it makes you look almost like a vexatious litigant. He has not only done that, but on his list of all these lawsuits he's filing has said he will settle for 1/4 of the claim. And we're going to get into in a second that he has a lot more lawsuits, which to me, as a layman, makes it seem like he's in it for the money.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is settlements are very common. Like I said, or court cases can be unreliable. It can be time consuming. No one wants to be part of that. But in some cases, you have to be judicious, right? If you have valid damages, oftentimes you're not willing to settle for 1/4 of it because they're genuine damages. In this case, it looks a little questionable. It's like, hey, give me money. And he's
Yeah.
not unaware, probably, that, and this is a very common issue with the American legal system, that it's just inherently part of the process. There's a lot of people like this who know big companies, because lawyers are expensive, because time's valuable, because they don't want to spend the time spinning up, spinning down on discovery. There are reasons why they might send you money, even if the case is a bit bunk, right?
Just to
Even
send it
if
away.
it's, yeah,
This
it's just
money
like,
means
look, it's
nothing
not
to
worth our
me.
time.
Go away.
And so I'll give you an example. Like, think about it this way. If you have, let's say the Pokemon Company has your normal outside counsel, that's $1,000 an hour sometimes. So if he's asking for 5K, that's 5 lawyer hours. That's just enough to get spun up on this. And in some cases, not
Yeah.
even to write a response.
But
So
with
if you're
the
the Pokemon
Powerwall
Company, there's
case,
pressure.
yeah, with the Power case, the settlement they offered was $84,000.
Yep, it's
Which,
surprisingly kind of low. Yeah.
yeah, it would. I mean, my theory on that is that they just wanted to codify it in the that yes, you on our trade our patent and go away now, and we're going to give you such a minimal amount of
Right.
settlement cost that it seems like a really good deal. And then Our World being the or Pocket Bear being the people they are, like, fuck you, we got Sony on our side, and and Sony's bigger than you, Nintendo. But
Yeah.
anyways, and then I do love this. Officers failing to follow directives will be sued along with the departments in towns and counties and countries, or counties and colleges. Uh, um, do, do, do government officials have any legal obligation to follow his directives?
Of course not. I mean,
Okay,
look, there are
double
plenty of ways in
checking.
which you can go after these. I mean, I'm sure folks have seen before when you're sometimes suing an agency, you're suing like the directors of the agency, something like that. That happens. There's reasons for that. In this case, he's not like he has no authority over these people. He has no way to demand that they do what he wants them to do, and he certainly doesn't understand the law. I mean, the problem here is that he's kind of implying fairly strongly that he's doing this as a punitive measure because he's
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, I'm going
Oh,
after
it gets
everyone who
worse.
possibly harms me."
Yeah,
And look, we're not quite to the point yet. We bandied this term about vexatious litigant. What that means, oftentimes in the legal context, is someone who is constantly abusing the legal process to harass someone, to burden the court, things like that. One or two cases isn't going to raise that, but saying I'm going to literally sue everyone who possibly slows me down in my process that might not be valid anyway. It just
yeah.
you're getting closer and closer to that line where you're going to really make a court angry, and they're going to come after you.
Yeah. And he does go on to say in Iowa, you'll be subject to civil litigation for failing to arrest based on evidence supplied to you. If and when I instruct you and your department to make an arrest, if and when I instruct you, I never saw Chief Commissioner on his,
Yeah,
his,
if they don't make an arrest, so he sues him for not making an arrest he told him to. Very unusual
also
legal theory on this one.
from my understanding, the DA has wide discretion about what cases they're going to take, has
Well, of
very,
course, yeah.
yeah. So like, even if he reports whatever, the DA can say, I don't want to deal with that because there's not enough evidence, or because I don't care about that, or like, very wide discretion on what cases they are going to take and what they're not going to take.
Absolutely.
So it's okay, Kyle. Let's get back to what was number one in here, just because I want to break your brain real quick. Did you get the chance to read this?
I did read through it. It is
Okay.
painful.
So as you can see on my note, can you see the screen that I'm sharing?
I do. I can. Yes.
Okay. Good. Good. Uh, as I took two notes for this, and it was two words. The first word was what? Because I don't know how to ask the question of does this make any sense?
I
Is is anything in here? Does anything in here hold legal weight? I guess is the best way to
no.
say this.
It's such a bad look because look. I mean, first of all, that's funny because the text is clearly somewhat AI generated. Somewhat. The thing on the bottom that's very clearly AI. I
100%
mean, we've
AI.
seen a
Yeah.
bazillion of that. The problem is this is such a bad way to start off because you know deep down inside that if the police department's receiving this, they're seeing this. This is putting him on their radar in the worst possible way. A man, by the way, who has an arrest warrant. So you're already putting their backs up. They're
We
already
technically
pissed
don't
off.
extradite, but we're
Yeah, but
gonna
like
make an exception.
you're becoming a thorn in their butt in a way where you're just going to be, known to the police department, which doesn't mean much. But like, look, they're not someone you want to make enemies of, and none of this has any meaning. This is just rambling nonsense. It's damn close to being. I'm sure we'll get into a little bit like uh, kind of similar to those guys who,
Sovereign citizen.
non-sovereign citizens. That's it, whatever it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, those nutters. Like it's very similar to that.
It is that I got a lot of comments that were just like, "This sounds like some sovereign citizen." Yes.
It's
Uh,
right on the line, right? Like so close.
Also, now I understand that technically the word terrorism in a legal context requires a threat of violence, but from a military standpoint, because I have a military background, it was force or the threat of force, use of force or the threat of force or anything like that. And force can have a very broad range of what it means to sway public opinion, political ideology, religious ideology, et cetera, et cetera. This, to me, with my background, if like say if I were in the FBI, I would be watching him because
Oh, absolutely.
this is approaching the line of terrorism, and is that something I can legally say?
It's tough because like he really is making a threat here. We
The
might
threat
query
is
whether
not
it's actionable.
violent necessarily, but
But it's notable, right? Like it's one of
yeah,
those things where if he's not on the list, he probably should be because
yeah,
these guys, the way in which he's saying it, we're kind of joking about it, but like it smacks of that sort of vaguely schizophrenic, The kind of guys who believe that they're being gang stalked or stochastic terrorism and all that stuff.
Mhm.
If he's on a list, he should be, right? Because there's a concern here that this is the kind of behavior you see from someone who begins to escalate. And you kind of want
Mhm.
to be careful here. I don't
These are
love
the
the government
starting
tracks people,
patterns.
but you do need to
Yeah.
keep an eye on these people, right?
This would appear in the documentary as one of the early signs.
Yes,
Like
yes.
this is, and we should have known back then, but he just seemed
Yeah.
like such a nice boy.
Well,
Uh,
exactly. That's where it's going, unfortunately.
yeah. And I will get into a little bit later, actually, some signs that it might make it lean a little bit more towards violence. I will also
Right,
point
right,
out that you said vaguely schizophrenic. I don't know what the diagnosis is, but he has publicly stated that he has a psychiatric service animal and and
right.
is disabled for it. So it very possibly might be schizophrenic. Does that make me feel a little bit worse for him? Eh, but does that mean he should get away with this? No.
No, no, no. I mean, and it's kind of sad because I've dealt with folks like this before where sometimes they don't know that they're not necessarily interpreting the world correctly or they don't quite know that what they don't know. And the ideal situation is you get them help, right? You get them medicated, you get them hell. Back when I was in law school, I had a stalker who believed that she was being stalked by a Swedish crime syndicate and I was going to be the one to prosecute them for her. And the process ultimately culminated in getting her help. It
Wait.
gets so fun. I mean, I won't joke too much about it, but like there is a book that she's written where she claims that, I was in Ithaca, New York at the time that the Swedish crime syndicate was on the top of the college town trying to fry her we'll say her private parts with a ray gun. It got real interesting. She was literally wearing a tinfoil hat. But people like this, you got it. Like I ended up having to work with the cops at the point to get her help because these people
Yeah.
sometimes need to be taught, help with by somebody, even if they're not
Yeah.
necessarily willing. Maybe that's where this guy is, but
There's
you don't know.
involuntary commitments to psychiatric hospitals, and it's approaching that line. Uh,
We're getting there.
but we'll move on. I had to bring that up because I had to break yours and everyone else's brain for a second because it add a little levity into this. This is all levity at this point. And this I'll go through real quick. These are list he publicly posted of lawsuits that he is planning on filing, and I have two questions with this. One, he says right here in his little asterisk, leave bad FB and Google reviews for all defendants. Now he frequently uses the verbiage we, and talks about this as if it's a group effort, and talks about this as if it is a community that he is talking to. Does his plan to leave negative reviews and seemingly encourage others to do the same have any sort of legal consequence? Because at this point, that to me almost comes up as tortious interference with business.
We're certainly getting closer to something dangerous here, and I don't know the state laws that affect him, but I know for sure that a lot of the platforms, Google, Facebook, etc., they would have an issue with this because just as if Steam gets pissed off when people try to review bomb something,
Yeah,
Google and Facebook they don't like it. I've had a situation where at a prior firm we had a guy who just didn't like one of our attorneys, nothing to do with our work actually, just some personal thing,
yeah,
ended up review bombing, and it was inconsequentially easily to get removed because their policy is we don't want to allow that to happen. Otherwise, the entire platform becomes useless.
yeah,
In this case, like let's zoom out again. It looks bad, right? It makes him look like it's punitive. It has nothing to do with actual damages he suffered. It looks like he's trying to go after people who he doesn't like and who he thinks he's entitled to things from, be it, the
yeah.
baseball coach, or anything else. So the we worries me a bit because I'm wondering if some people are facilitating him, kind of giving him the, you go for it sort of comments. I doubt
I
that's the case too much, but
I've looked at a lot of his posts. He doesn't have a lot of comments on. I think it's more so he's saying we in the same. So like
the
that
royal we.
I'm working on the prior art database. That's one of the big things I'm working on
Yep,
right
yep.
now. Is that hopefully we're going to be soft launching it in July. It's going to be. I've had to pivot to a more volunteer based type of thing just because being able to pay someone enough money to have them working on it full time and helping build out is an expensive thing. So volunteer based is going to work similar to the way Urban Dictionary used to work, just with more scrutiny on the reviews to have legal weight behind them. Uh, and when I talk about that, I use the word we.
Right,
I use plural words. I use words that say, this is not only me, this is you. This is my
right,
audience. Please
right.
help me with this. Because part of it's just like, yes, this is something I'm doing for the gaming community as a whole. And part of it is I understand the psychological level of if I start using that words, I'm investing the audience in the thing that I'm working on, which means they are more likely to.
Right.
That is just a psychological tactic of how to talk to
Yeah.
people. And him doing that might be intentionally trying to do the same thing. You also might be correct that maybe maybe there is no we. Maybe he just thinks there is a we because he might be have some sort of mental issues that are making
Yeah.
him think he talks about, I mean, right here, he talks about the KO administration. To have an
Yeah.
administration, you need at least two people.
God, it's concerning. I mean, it worries me because, needless to say, there's always been a demographic of people since time immemorial who have poked the bear and tried to feed, the crazy person, feed the locale, and
Mhm.
getting them to do things. I don't get the vibe from this either. Like, I looked at some of the comments myself. I agree with you. I don't think there's a lot of people goading him on. So it might be one of those things where he's combining the royal we with the assumption that because he has viewers, he has support, which is not
Yeah.
necessarily the case.
Yeah, who's Johnny Somali had viewers, and they're
That's the
all
thing,
so
right?
happy to see him in jail. Like every last one of them is happy to see him in jail.
Like
Uh,
Daniel Larson had a bunch of people who were encouraging him to do bad
yeah,
things. The infamous guy who ended up getting arrested fairly recently, I think again or something like that. And like you don't want that. That's a bad
yeah.
situation. But in this
Ted
case,
Bundy had people show up to
oh
court and talk about how hot he was. Like that's
God, they still do after that damn TV
yeah.
show.
It's weird. Why did they have Zac Efron play Ted Bundy? Was it Zach? Yeah, because it was Chris Evans played Jeffrey Dahmer, which has got to be the
Which
most.
is
When someone, it's like when they cast Umbridge. Imagine being cast like, okay, we want a hideous woman that is just despicable. Everyone's gonna hate. You're great for it.
oh
Like,
God, it's such a weird vibe. It's kind of fascinating to talk to people who are super into that. Like the true crime community is fascinating in its own right, but
yeah, it is interesting. I find it fascinating. I do not find it fascinating in the way that I idolize these people. I
yeah,
normally I'm like, wow, you were really dumb and your ego got in the way. My
it's
God.
fun to learn about. But yeah, the
Yeah.
second you go like, I find this person attractive, interesting, I want to be this person. You're like, okay, we're past the line here.
We need to make some calls.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I've dated one
Ghost.
too many girls with Ted Bundy plushies to know that that's a bad idea.
But here's, yeah, he's got the lawsuits he's filing, blah blah blah. Then he goes down to here, and this is another question: does this alone basically say he's a vexatious litigant? Because he refers to it one as the endless cycle of Zoom, and down here, each time for crime not enforced by police or court attorney goes straight to court judge warrant. Unlawful gatekeeping by court clerks opens doors again for new charges, new filings, a new endless cycle of doom repeatedly. Basically saying that he is going to try to find as many loopholes in the legal system to recycle these lawsuits again and again and again, draining the money from the people. Let's equate it to, because my channel and because your background, Nintendo, whenever Power World was winning, whenever Pocket Pair was winning, we're gonna adjust that patent. We're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
we're gonna change that patent around a little bit. We're gonna drag this out even longer. We're gonna introduce new things that you now have to litigate because Japan does not have summary judgment, um, which America does, Kyle. Um, but he's basically saying that he's trying to complete this cycle of keeping these people trapped in a lawsuit, which is a vexatious litigant question
Almost
mark.
pretty close to the definition. I mean, the way to think about it, and just give you some quick background. So when we talk about vexatious litigants, one, a lot of courts apply it differently because there is an American assumption that we don't want to shut people out of the legal system. And even if you get tagged as a vexatious litigant, by the way, you are not blocked from the legal system. What happens
There's just
oftentimes is that
steps.
yeah, right. The court says from now on you can't freely file a lawsuit. I have to pre-approve you doing so, which is basically saying someone's got to review this before you're allowed to file. Uh, the interesting part about this is he's basically saying explicitly that he's going to abuse the system where it shouldn't be used. Because keep in mind, if let's say I have a valid lawsuit against somebody for something, legit, and another claim comes up, the ideal situation is I amend the complaint, I talk to the judge, I figure something out, depending on the venue, depending on the situation, to include that in the case. Or, if there's multiple cases, they all get combined into one. There's ways to do it. If there's multiple lawsuits, sometimes they come sequentially in time. That happens all the time, but it's just you want to be efficient. He's explicitly saying here, I'm trying to drain them, essentially.
Mhm.
That's a bad look no matter who you are. I wouldn't say that in a million years. I mean, yes, that does happen. And that's one strategy used by people to get settlements because that's when they want money.
Yeah,
But you should never say this. The goal here is if you have damages, if there's something that was wrong done, you want to be made whole. The goal
yeah.
here is not I'm going to punish them with the stick of God, which is my series of lawsuits until they are, crying and weeping
Yeah.
and out of money. It's not how this works.
If you think this was him explicitly saying that he's trying to punish them, then I got some news for you, Kirk. This
Oh
is
boy.
gonna get worse.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
and here was the first comment he released on my first video. Now, in that first video, I'm a lot more unbiased. I'm a lot less opinionated. I'm very much like, if he was wrong, then yeah, he deserves this. But also, like, from what is being presented, I don't think Nintendo was wrong. And I even say, like, hey, just because he has a felony doesn't mean he's a bad person. The goal should be changed and blah, blah, blah. So I'm being a lot kinder to him. So that's probably why he's being a little bit less upset with me here. Every time I open my front door, a fly gets in.
Oh, of course.
There you go.
Well, and look, like the thing here is like there may be one of these cases, one of the many that he's brought or he's claiming to bring that might be valid. We don't know. And the
Yeah,
reality is the problem is everything around it makes it look bad, right?
yeah,
If you have a valid claim, you've got to come in clean. Like there have been situations which I've had to sue people personally because of things that they did where it was like, I didn't want to go to court. Like I remember the feeling of it. Hey, you don't want to do it because it takes forever. You honestly just wanted to get over with. Like in that case, I just wanted, in this case, my money back, right? There was
yeah,
a company that stole from a charity I was running, and I'm like, look, I don't care, honestly. Just give the charity that I'm helping their money back. That's
yeah,
all I care about.
yeah,
And so actually that got bopped off on settlement because we went almost to the day of trial and they just gave me my money back and apologized and everything else. But if you're genuinely harmed, you kind of don't want to do this because this sucks as a plaintiff as well. Like you don't want
yeah.
to be part of this. It
It's a
sucks.
lot of steps. It's a lot of time. These lawsuits, like I watch a lot. I'm not a lawyer, but I watch a lot of legal stuff, and it's like it's the TV idea of we're gonna have this happen. We're gonna be in court tomorrow. It's gonna be resolved in a week from now is not the case. It's the Power World lawsuit's been going on since 2024. The yeah 2024. There's lawsuits right now that are going on that were probably something that happened 10 years ago that adjudicated. But I think the important note here is we talked about how did he arrive at the amount of money that he thinks he's entitled to, $341,000.
Right.
So the total average between the amount, hold on, to do so the value was originally half of the lawsuit amount. Half the value was offered in settlement, which was ignored for months. A quarter is the average for all the federal claims, plus the Iowa state claims under supplemental jurisdiction. He doesn't know how to spell supplemental. So there are 5 or 6 total federal and state violations in the totality of the case. So the total average amount between all 5 to 6 in federal claims was doubled for the current value for two. So here's where he's getting why he doubled the value based off of whatever legal math he might have done, which I do not know the validity of, so I did not comment on. Uh, it was doubled for 2 reasons. Too many people are causing me too many issues in life and blocks to education in pursuit of credentials and pursuit to make Game Master a real thing like GameStop and Geek Squad. I literally have hundreds of people and companies causing me issues daily. I don't think they're the ones causing him issues. So much I can't even sit down and play a video game. When this happens, I'm doubling the average lawsuit amount in other cases to hopefully put the fear of God into people to just simply stop, let me finish college and pursue my dreams and goals with Game Master and stop causing a brick wall every single term. The other reason is, and this is number 2, because when we have a company that does illegal and unlawful things, whether under federal or state law, it's expected for that company to remedy the issue. No one should ever have to go to court for anything. And we don't, clearly Kyle thinks that because he has warrants for his arrest. And when we don't have cooperation and remedy, and I have to spend hours scouring law books and making filings and complying with due process of law to get justice in the courts, and then spend many hours litigating the case for about years, the value cannot remain the normal average. I feel that double the average is a fair amount for the series of state and federal violations in this case here. He said 2 things. One, the reason is to put the fear of God in them. The reason he has assigned the value that he's assigning to it is not related to the damages. It is related to his personal feelings about it because people that aren't even necessarily the Pokemon company, they are a small part of this, are causing him pain and suffering. We can go back to the housing case where he's suing a dead man. We can go to the lawsuit case where he's mad that women can't play the same sports as he does and that he's too old to play sports. Uh he's having people cause him pain, that's what he said, and he's doubling the value of the lawsuit because of that. Does that hold any legal weight? does
No.
does his personal feelings and what's going on in his life at all apply to what Nintendo may or may not have done to him?
Well, he seems to be alluding this idea that there's pain and suffering that he's entitled to be recovered. You know, he's entitled to get money for him. First of all, the fact that you just have a crummy life where everyone's against you, as he seems to claim, does not entitle you to more money from one particular person. But at the same time, look, not to be the psychiatrist here, but like he seems to constantly be blaming the outside world for all of the things that go wrong with him. And I have plenty of clients where they have been legitimately harmed by some other company or something else. Plenty of them have had their invention stolen, for example.
Hmm.
And look, I get it. It's hard not to be pissed off. It's hard not to say stuff like this. I've heard way worse from people who had valid claims. The problem is you have to remember, you have to step back, and that's why lawyers can be so valuable is our job is not just to say, hey, we'll file the papers for you. It's to kind of calm down and put things into a much more factual, sort of calm basis. And in this case, this is what happens when you don't do that, is you get these personal vendettas, which have no
Hmm.
basis in reality. There may be a basis in reality, but we don't know because it just looks bad across the board. So if he stepped back and realized, look, the fact that you have difficulty with other people making your life difficult, making, you can't sit down and play a video game. Like, that doesn't mean that one particular person, company, department, whatever, owes you more money. It
Yeah,
means that if you have a harm, let's say they stole $10,000 from you somehow, then you are entitled to $10,000. You don't get to play
yeah,
this clever math because you can't sit down and play video games anymore.
yeah. It seems very it. I feel like he's watched a lot of Facebook and stuff like that.
Yes.
I feel like that's where this is coming from. This is not coming from an understanding of law. This is coming from an understanding of sitcom law, where you might have a situation where I don't know, Jennifer Aniston serves someone coffee that's too hot, so they sue the Friends coffee shop for $50 billion because of how much it hurt their fucking feelings. I I I I
It's
don't understand. But does this? I guess the bigger question that's legally applicable is: does him saying that the goal is to put the fear of God into them make it rise a little bit more to vexatious litigant? Because now, one, he's saying the amount of money he's asking for is arbitrary, effectively.
so
And
honestly
then
what
he's
he's
saying this is about being a pain in the ass. I'm trying to make them suffer. Like,
Well, he's giving people the perfect package, and I'll explain why. So if let's say I'm a recipient of one of these lawsuits, there's two things I've got right now. First, like what you're showing me right now is the perfect package to send to a court saying this guy's a vexatious litigant. Granted, it's going to be hard because in some cases he's filing these cases in different federal courts or different state courts, so it's all over the map. It's going to be hard to kind of show that. And granted, again, the courts are loath to tag someone with this because they want people to feel free to come in, even if they have a weak case, right? If
yeah.
they have a legit case, even if they have a hard time proving it, we want them to come in.
And that's why we
But
have the concept of
the
summary judgment, because then the judge can just say, no, you have a weak case, go away.
Exactly. And but of course that costs money for the defendant. But the interesting part of this too is I keep mentioning a lot of his complaints are very clearly ChatGPT drafted.
Mhm.
There's this interesting trend amongst some judges to say, look, that tends to weigh a little bit in the sign that there's something wrong going on here, especially, and this is probably where he's going to find the biggest danger, if he's miscited cases or misattributed cases or just has invented fake cases. If you can find something like that in his complaint, that's oftentimes his judgment to completely strike the whole damn complaint. Now, granted, he might get, it might be without prejudice, he could refile, but if I'm a recipient of this, I'm coming in with a package of two things. One of them is, hey, this guy is a known vexatious, right, known problem. He's trying to use this as a punitive measure that has no basis in reality. This complaint was drafted by AI. Also, the fact that it was drafted by AI, half of the citations he's using are inaccurate, imprecise, wrong, whatever. Therefore, this should be struck pretty out of hand. And what would be interesting is if one of these defendants were to create that package, honestly, since these statements are so generic, you could probably just reapply to every single case that he files because I'm sure it's all going to be ChatGPT. I'm sure there's always going to be mistakes. You just,
Yeah.
rinse and repeat, copy paste, off you go.
Yeah. So basically the same thing he's doing, but in reverse.
Just he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Don't make me do this. No.
You said something that made me think of a question that was related to that idea of oh yeah. So kind of is the fact that he's filing 75 lawsuits, he uses the pro se litigant thing as I believe you stated earlier, effectively he gets to get away with court costs. He doesn't have to deal with a lot of the associated fees of filing a court case because he's a pro se litigant and he's considering himself indigent. Is the fact that he's filing 75 cases something that they might look at when they decide whether or not to grant that pro se status and waive the court fees?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's some complexity here because there are some instances which he's doing it with different courts. There's some cases where he's doing it with different defendants, but it is a problem. I mean, the quintessential example would be of a vexatious litigant, rather, would be someone who's filing the same lawsuits against one person, right, harassing one specific person they have beef with. However, there's a good argument to be made that you can still be vexatious if you're just a pain in the butt to the courts in general, whether they be federal or state, right? You're known for hucking out lawsuits with reckless abandon. The problem is that there are some instances in which there are companies and people who file a lot of lawsuits that are totally valid. A good example is like your sort of RIAA, MPAAs of the world, where they're kind of tasked with enforcement of IP rights. They do, in some cases, have a standing to go off and sue a bunch of different people. Arguably, validly, we might dispute that, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
In his case, like you have to get a bit more in the nuance of it. It's like this man's going on the internet saying he's trying to punish people through the legal process. He's doing so through different courts, different defendants, and in some cases, different claims. But because ChatGPT has made it so easy for him to do so, the barrier to him just papering the courts with nonsense is very high. And there probably should be a literal adult in the room telling him, we're not going to do that.
Probably.
Yeah.
We'll move on here real quick to the second comment he made, which was very shortly after that one. So there's a lot of misinformation in this case. I think did he spell? Okay, he misspelled there, but not misinformation. Many
So you know
people
it's not
are.
AI.
That's that. Honestly, the easiest way to tell what is AI and what is not AI is if he is spelling things correctly, because he doesn't when he's commenting on things. But I'm genuinely surprised he's not using AI to respond to things. Uh, Many people are simplifying it and mixing legal concepts. So it's unlawful to change an academic grade to a failing grade for any reason related to academic merit. This will go. I'll finish the comment. That's one concept being argued. Another is Iowa employment law. Even though this is voluntary, the EEOC has held that voluntary positions still fall valid in employment laws, and Iowa law comes into play here. We also have the FCRA. To use non-conviction is 100% unlawful in all states under federal law. Don't know what he's going with there because he has a felony. As far as monopolization goes, when Nintendo prohibits and sues people for hosting unauthorized Nintendo events, this includes Pokemon events, it becomes valid under the Sherman Act. Even when a foreign company establishes a U.S. trademark or UA corporation, its headquarters under international law and recognized by federal law is still based in Japan. I think we have 2 to 3 state claims and 3 to 4 federal claims in all the suit. One, would this be considered an academic grade?
Of course not. No, I mean it's a
Private
qualification
company.
test. He's not the Pokemon company is not an actual university.
Yeah,
Like
it's
this is
it's
a
you go to McDonald's Burger University. It's not you're not getting an associate's degree out of that.
and also like I've been in school for a very long time in my life. I can assure you there are plenty of instances in which like grades are curved, modified, changed, whatever for a variety of reasons.
I have literally
Oftentimes
had
they're
a C curved into a high B, or a high B D curved into a high B because the professor liked me.
yeah, it
Yeah,
happens. Like there's plenty of reasons why, and oftentimes like there's student handbook rules for this sort of thing. I'm not aware of any rule that says it's like a federal offense or whatever to modify a grade, much less if you're a company doing it on a damn Pokemon trading card game test.
he probably asked ChatGPT. Uh,
Almost certainly.
this is not a volunteer. This is not even necessarily a volunteer position. It is a title and or certification granted by a private entity that allows you to be considered for volunteerism. Does that change his legal argument here?
And so he's getting so confused because he's not half wrong on one part of this, but he's misunderstanding what's going on. It is true that there are situations in which volunteers can be effectively employed for the purposes of the law. So, for example, the quintessential example that everyone worries about is like interns who are doing real work and you're just not paying them, like
Hmm.
free labor. Like that's what the government doesn't want to allow. So there
Hmm.
are instances in which various administrative departments, as well as common law, set up factors for deciding whether or not you are an employee or if you're just like a volunteer. And it depends on who's doing the testing and things like that. The broad spectrum idea is that you have questions like, what's the nature of the remuneration? Are they in control of your time? Are you getting benefits? All this different stuff, right?
Yeah.
In this case, pretty much every single factor falls in favor of him as being a volunteer, even if he got the Pokemon professor position.
Yeah.
Because we're talking no pay. At best, they are compensating. Like I think the Pokemon Professor program, they'll compensate you for like some expenses, like travel sometimes, maybe that. But that's still volunteer. They don't control his time. They don't control the nature of his work. At best, they're controlling his use of their licensed assets. And by the way, this Sherman Act thing's hilarious to me because, by the way, IP is a legal monopoly. It is the quintessential example of
We
a
talked about
legal
that last time.
constitutionally validated monopoly. Like
Yeah.
it's not a restraint of commerce to use it. And granted, there are instances in which those claims are made. We can get real legal nerdy about it. But in this case, a company saying we own these IP rights and we are selective on who we engage with so we protect the value of them, that's the whole point of IP.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't go sue somebody on that one.
I mean, I said it earlier. This is effectively what he's asking for is a franchise license, and he's being denied it. And McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, KFC, none of those companies are required to grant you a franchise license. If they did it for racially motivated reasons or gender motivated reasons or things like
Sure,
that, then
yeah.
you would have a case. He's a criminal. Like it's
Like think about the flip side of this. If he gets his way, then franchises like let's say McDonald's, for example, they would be obligated to provide licenses to people who are such a reputational hazard that we would have such a danger applied to that brand. You would effectively require them to dilute the brand and add legal risk to their entire franchise just because, well, we don't want it to,
yeah,
we want to allow felons to flip burgers, right?
yeah.
It's so unbelievably silly. And it's one of those things where he's obviously reading parts of the law and he thinks he understands what it means. He doesn't see the big picture here. The big picture
Yeah.
is they are not obligated to work with him. They will never be obligated to work with him.
It's something you said earlier and something I used to say a lot in my previous career that I think is a very valid statement is you don't know what you don't know. And when you recognize that you don't know what you don't know, you're actually a lot smarter for it because you
Right.
don't say things like this. It's very much the example of people asking a lot of people of, "Oh, we found a lot of dihydrogen monoxide in cancer cells. Should we ban it?" And people are like, "Well, if it's in cancer
I
cells,
mean,
yeah,
this
we
is
should." But it's like it's water. It's
yeah.
water, dude. And this guy would not understand what water is in this.
And look, again, to kind of repeat what we said before, there may be some cases he's bringing that are somewhat valid.
Yeah,
Like he's got one where he claims that like one of the other schools he was at, they didn't give him proper accommodations for him and his like service dog.
yeah.
We don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
It could be. We don't, there's so much nuance there. I think the
But when you
basic
have
thrust of it.
74 other cases,
Yeah, when you're playing, have this long form plan of punishing people with
yeah.
lawsuits, it doesn't it makes everything look bad.
Yeah, you sent me that one last night, and I was reading it in bed, which is why I didn't respond because I was just like, I just got out of the shower, I'm
Good
tired.
bedtime reading.
Yeah, I didn't get to sleep till late. um, but yeah, that one seems like I actually saw that. I was like, oh, that might be a valid case because if he does have a lease with them and it does say this, and they did say they were going to provide this and this and this, and then he showed up and they didn't, and then he had to assume costs of moving and was temporarily homeless and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a shitty thing that the college did. I cannot believe a single thing he says anymore. He is the most untrustworthy witness that you could have.
I would be more sympathetic to him than anyone because I've had so many issues with the administrations of schools. I
Mhm.
get it. They can be shady and non-specific and sort of subtle in the ways in which
Oh,
they
I've
mess
had
with
to
you. I've
threaten my
had
school with lawsuits before.
same.
Yeah,
Actually, funny enough, like it's happened
you had
before.
to
I
threaten
get
a
it.
law school with lawsuits. That's
Absolutely.
great. That's
And thankfully not the law
fantastic.
school. No, thankfully
Okay,
not
okay.
them.
You
But
would have been screwed.
I've
It's
been screwed.
like
I've been done. Yeah.
hey
But like,
guys, we got a new case study for you to work
oh
on.
god. And it's funny because in many ways I'm almost sympathetic. Like I know how that can feel where they're just jerking you around.
Mhm.
But the problem is, like you said, now that he's being such a problem, it's hard to believe him on anything.
Yeah,
If he picked his battles, and look, this is one thing I've had to learn myself is I've had people who have done things to me where I could have sued them, right? I've had again, I do a lot of charity events as well. Other than people stealing money from me, I've had plenty of instances in which people have done some really raw crap. And at some point, you just got to give it up. Like at one
yeah,
point, I had someone no show and run off with like $300. The filing cost would have been more than that. So it's
yeah,
like, look, it sucks. I'm pissed at them. Screw that person. But sometimes you have to move on. And for
yeah,
him, he's got to pick his battles. And
yeah.
what's funny about that case you mentioned, just to flag for people, again, the chat GPTification of it, it's so full of nonsense that just weakens his case. It's
I
saying
think we
like,
got
well, they claimed
right.
my dog was barking and it wasn't. It's like, okay, sure. Like people are going to mistake stupid stuff like that.
I think
That
it's
doesn't,
right here.
that's not relevant. Yeah. Like
It's
if they're being discriminated against you for a legitimate protected sort of disability you have, that's a problem. But when you talk about whether your dog is barking, man, I don't know.
yeah, part of it was him filing complaints about smelling weed and stuff like that. You're out of college, dude. You're
Yeah,
out of
where do you think
college and
you
you're at
are?
a community college, dude.
Yeah.
You're gonna smell weed. The school has no legal obligation to prevent you from smelling weed. It's it's a part. I walk down the street. I'll be driving down the highway and a car will pass me and I'll smell weed and I'll think, wow, that's really unsafe. But
Yeah, that's it's,
I don't go and complain and sue the police department for not handling that situation for me. Like,
yeah. We can't be too American about this, not to impugn the country, but we can't be suing for every single
it,
small slight we find.
you're not wrong.
Yeah,
Uh, and one of the things he says is he tries to claim that these are monopolistic practices, that they sue people for
that's
hosting
IP.
unauthorized Pokemon tournaments. From
Welcome
my
to IP.
understanding, it might be monopolistic if they went after, and it would be very dumb, like Wizards of the Coast and said, you have Magic the Gathering, that's interfering with Pokemon, you can't have Magic the Gathering. Konami, you can't have Yu-Gi-Oh. Uh, we have a monopolistic control of what effectively what they are doing in the Power World case. That is could be determined as a monopolistic practice. But protecting your own personal IP from being used in an unauthorized way is there anything about that is monopolistic?
I mean, it's literally set in the Constitution. It is the quintessential example of monopoly. The
Yeah,
term patent comes from letters patent granted by kings to give you a monopoly over some sort of trade. Come
yeah.
on, man. Like, that's the point. Now,
It's
granted, there are legal nerd instances in which that can happen. A random example, and this is not perfect, bear with me, would be let's say, the Pokemon Trading Card Company uh, policy is that if you make cards for them, you can't make trading cards for anybody else. And they do that with every single company in the world. So therefore, there's no way anyone else can produce cards.
mhm.
And they buy all the machinery up and do everything else. Then maybe you have an argument. I don't even know if it'd be that strong.
Yeah,
But just saying we're not going to license you because you're a felon. No.
yeah. It's and shutting down those Pokemon events, I feel like that is a valid. And in fact, I feel like to an extent, Pokemon could probably enforce their IP even more because I've been to a number of cons where people are selling unlicensed Pokemon merch that is a one-to-one recreation, and they legally would have the right to like shut that down because it's being sold for a profit, but they don't.
And it's funny, one sort of dark secret is I actually interviewed for Nintendo's enforcement position a long time ago and didn't get the job surprisingly because I told them
Kirk!
I don't agree with them on some policies.
I,
But look, it's a
I
two-pronged
want to be part
sword.
of your enforcement division. I hate
Yeah,
everything you do.
yeah, don't
Like,
do it anymore. It says
stop.
I'll do nothing.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a
Like
vacation. You're gonna pay me for it.
like what you mentioned is a good example. Like there are people out there who are profiting off the IP in a way that's kind of scummy. Like the quintessential example is I was at a few cons recently, especially like last year. You saw tons of like AliExpress nonsense, like bootleg. Funny enough, bootleg Pokemon cards. You're like,
Hmm.
yeah, I would want to enforce against that because I want our buyers to know when they buy a card from a con, it's legit. They're not being scammed.
It's the whole
We're going
point
to
of
use our
trademark.
largesse. Yeah, like
Yeah,
we're going to go out there and make sure that you know what you're buying. I
as
get
much
that.
about consumer protection as it is about brand protection. If the
Right.
brand can protect their image, then the consumer knows that that's what they're getting.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep. And on the flip side, like, am I really going to be enforcing against people who are making like fan art? It's just a bad look sometimes. I mean, granted, there are instances in which you might
they
want
do
to,
it
like if they're
sometimes, but yeah,
right, and you can create examples where that makes sense.
yeah,
But like in this case, it's not that complicated. It's saying, look, there's a major reputational issue with an individual. In the same sense, like there have been plenty of brands who have to do this because otherwise, it really harms your brand. This is the quintessential family-friendly company.
hmm,
You do not want them forced to deal with people like this because my
yeah.
God, think about the Smash community, man. Like part of the reason they were enforcing my secret suspicion is they know a lot of people in the Smash organizer community are more than a little controversial.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with those people either. They
There's
don't have
also a
to.
lot of Rule 34 with that we will not
Oh,
go into.
absolutely.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
I think they have a good reason to be like we don't. At the very least, we want to publicly be saying we don't approve of this, and the way we do that is with a lawsuit.
Exactly, right?
It's and it comes down to like with trademark, you legally have to enforce trademark or you lose it. Like it's not like
And
copyright where like you can you can selectively choose when to enforce copyright or when to enforce patent. But with trademark, if you are become aware of a trademark breach, you have to enforce it or you lose it, from my understanding.
I know there's been a recent spat of stuff on the internet where there's been folks complaining about how Japanese companies are increasingly shifting their perspective on it, like people going to jail for spoiling movies and things like that.
Jesus
Yeah, a lot of
Christ.
the yeah, a lot of these companies are coming out from the Japanese perspective and are way different in how they approach this stuff. I don't agree with it either. I think it's stupid, but there are instances in which this is valid, right? We just got to kind of come to the agreement that sometimes we might agree that there's a moralistic control that they need to effectuate over their IP, and sometimes they're just being silly. And
Yeah,
that where that line's drawn, we might disagree on, but like
yeah.
those are two poles. The Japanese are being probably a little bit aggressive, stupid about it, but you know, at minimum, we can probably agree that if you're a family-friendly company and you are trying to run fun little events, that you don't want to deal with scumbags.
Hold on, hold on.
So
I
recording.
it was. Sorry about that. The recording broke. We're back to it. You didn't miss anything. It's fine. But anyways, let's move on. He does answer the question of because when I did the secondary video of him, I repeatedly brought up the fact that he was willing to admit what his misdemeanors were. He did not admit what his felony was. He says in this, I believe, that he doesn't list it because it wasn't relevant. But if the reason he is being denied the title is because of his background check and the felonies on that background check, I feel like it's relevant. I made a little bit of the assertion that if you're not willing to tell me if this is the evidence that you're hiding, it's got to be pretty bad. Um, apparently it was forgery. That's what he claims it was. A 12 tax CF tac 32 forgery in 2011. Disposition was in 2012. He took a plea deal for 30 months of probation. Uh, and I took that deal because I was kept in jail for 30 days on the charge. I wanted to go home. I wound up losing my house shortly after. I eventually made my way downstate to a homeless shelter where my probation was violated. The presiding judge, Gordon Lutzfeld, was forced into retirement by me for a series of unlawful acts. That also seems like he's admitting to vexatious litigation again. And the arresting officer, Michael Yates, was terminated from Watseka PD. Again, he has ended someone's career. He is admitting to that, and he's admitting to all that. So all these damages that he is claiming could easily be thrown back at him. The judge sentenced me to 4.5 years in prison, only for the resentencing to be overturned, and the judge refused to release me or vacate the charge or allow me to fight the court. If this is true, if what he's saying is true, then Kyle, I feel sorry that this happened to you. The person you came into being after it is not a great person, but I feel sorry that this happened to you. But does does the Pokemon Company or Nintendo have any obligation to listen to a sob story? Like, let's be honest. Like, it, yes, this might be true. He might have this felony for something that was entirely not his fault. He says the forgery was because he was given a bad check to cash and he was arrested on that behalf. Now, query whether or not someone can claim they are a legal genius and they know more than most lawyers if they can't fight this case and not be in jail for 5 years or 4.5. But does the Pokemon Company have any obligation to look more into it other than we got a background check that says you have a felony? Goodbye.
And that's the thing is like at the end of the day, they do not have the ability to tell what's genuine and what. They're not a fact finder, right? They do not have the
Yeah,
ability to go through the facts of the case and re-adjudicate it and be better than the judge and the jury and or the
yeah,
lawyers in the case. They have to take these things as fact. So if it is unfortunately true that he was sort of railroaded into a plea deal, that's horrible. But the reality of it is
yeah,
the Pokemon Company is not equipped to tell you to do anything other than take those facts as they are presented in the background check. Now,
yeah.
I begin to kind of question whether or not what he's saying is the full story because it just doesn't seem to make total sense. I mean,
It doesn't pass the sniff test.
people are railroaded into plea deals. That absolutely does
Yeah,
happen. But if you were given a forged check to pay you and then you went and cashed it, say, and then you got arrested upon trying to cash it, like you would think that you would immediately go, "Hey, I was handed this. I didn't know any better. What do I do?" Like something better
yeah,
would happen. There's more to the story, and again, what I'm even if it's true, even for me, I'm like, I would need to know way, way, way more to make any sort of gut check on this.
yeah,
Pokemon Company don't have time for that.
yeah. The prison system is filled with people that say they're innocent, and some of them are, but you can't. It's not their obligation to do any of this. Goes on. Some parts of your video are funny, but many were offensive. Good. When people like if I offended if me repeating to anyone I ever do any content on, if me saying the things you did is something that you find offensive, I think you need to do some self analysis, my guy.
Yeah.
Um, and then I go on to just I'm including this because I want your opinion as a legal expert. Uh, he randomly in one of the screenshots I believe I did send you starts a paragraph or starts a sentence with "I'm not a pedophile."
So,
No one was
no one
asking,
has said that.
and I just want as a lawyer, I don't know how much trial law do you do?
I've done a decent amount.
Okay, so if you were advocating on behalf of your client and you put your client up on the witness stand and you ask your client, d- d- "Sir, is it true that you were falsely accused of forgery?" And then he goes and says, "Well, let's start with this. I don't diddle kids." Would how would you react to that?
And my best guess here is he must be thinking, okay, well, people keep saying I can't be a Pokemon professor with, a felony or whatever because there's kids around.
Yeah,
And yeah, that part of the reason why is you don't want pedophiles around, but that's not really what they're saying. They're saying is there's a
no,
class of folks who, by their background, are folks that would impugn the reputation. And let's be simple about it. One simple example could be if you are in a position of authority in determining who wins or who loses a particular card game based on the rules, fraud suggests that you might
is
not be the most trustworthy
probably
person. Like,
probably not a good look. Also, he had to take this test, so that's not a good look. Also, does having a fraud charge kind of make him not look as good of a litigant?
it
Like,
is one of those
legitimate
it's one
question.
of those quintessential examples of things you can bring up and saying that someone's not trustworthy for sure. Like this is a
Yeah,
good example of something where you can bring it up and say, look, they are less likely to be forthcoming and truthful because there's evidence of it. Now, granted, again, we don't
yeah.
know if that he did get
The
railroaded or
truth of the
not.
matter. Yeah, yeah,
But like from their perspective, it's not that people are calling him a pedophile. They're saying, look, there's kids around, but what they're really getting at is you are of the class of people where on the papers, if we believe them, which we kind of have to, if you're of the class of person who's untrustworthy and who's associated with prior criminal charges, The Pokemon Company does not want you running their events that it potentially could have impact on their IP. Full stop. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not someone's saying you're going to go digital kids. I mean, granted, if you're a sex offender, that's a very good reason not to let you be a Pokemon
That's a
professor.
very good reason.
But
Yeah,
that's not what they're saying. They're saying
yeah,
you are of the class of people. They just might not be saying it with the precision that he wants, but they're still getting at that point.
yeah. And I just thought it was kind of funny
So
because
weird.
he says that he says in his comment that he brought that up because people were accusing him of this, but like that was not that was like it was such a tangent in the post that he made that to me, if you start claiming innocence to things that you weren't directly accused of, that's a weird thing
It really
to
is weird.
do. Yeah.
And look, like I think he doesn't mean it that horribly, but it does. It's poorly received when people
Kirk?
Pokemon.
Kirk, there's a slide at the end here.
Oh boy. Let's put it this way.
There's a slide at the
The
end,
Pokemon
Kirk.
world has enough issues with weirdos. You don't necessarily want to be bringing this topic up unless you really want to be affiliated because man, Pokemon
The
fans can
worst
get
part
real
is
weird.
the slide that I added at the end was something he posted.
Oh no.
So after getting all of these critiques, he
Oh,
posted this thing, and my God. But yeah, and more of it's just like sob story stuff. I do
oh
like
yeah,
this
yeah.
down here at the bottom where he says, all my previous and current lawsuits have gone to charity, by the way, only keep enough to feed and house myself, which is directly contradictory to other statements he has made about wanting to be able to attend college and wanting to be able to do these things and this thing and make his company larger and more successful. He does seem very money motivated.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of want to bring that up because, like, if I am talking to someone and they are telling 7 different stories, I don't believe any of them. One of them might be true, but I'm not going to believe any of them.
It's
So when he
like
starts saying, I'm doing this because it's the righteous thing to do and I want to hold these companies accountable, and then he's saying, I'm doing this because I need to become successful, and then he's saying, I'm doing this so I can donate it to charity, one of those things might be true, but as far as I'm concerned, I believe none of them. And
yeah.
I feel like that's a fair thing. Would that be something that could be brought up in court? The fact that someone has made multiple different statements about their intention for the lawsuit that they are
As
filing.
long as it's relevant, I think it could happen. I mean, judges are pretty careful to not just let people get railroaded on random stuff they say on social media occasionally. But in this case, I mean, he's
Yeah.
talking about these cases, and
His social media is about the lawsuits.
and I just disbelieve it in many ways. It's just if it's true that he's
Yeah.
donating this stuff to charity, my question is which charity, where, and where's the proof, right? Like if that's
He
happening,
does he does get into that, and it's gonna upset you.
oh no.
Uh, it's gonna upset you. Also, to clarify, and this is you're gonna love this, Kirk. Also, to clarify, I hold a 2-year degree in legal studies. That's close to a JD in legal courses. I've also won more than 5 dozen court cases in my lifetime, but not the felony, and definitely not the misdemeanors that you refuse to show up to, Kyle. I'll win this one. I feel like Cartman the number of times over the last 2 videos I've
Kyle,
done on this guy
yeah.
where I just go, Kyle.
Kyle.
Uh, I'll win this one just like I win them all. You didn't win them all, dude. You went to jail for 5
Yeah,
years.
I don't think you win criminal cases. You're just found not guilty and you survive them. I don't know. I'd say winning is on the
No,
docket.
because Kirk, he wasn't found not guilty.
Yeah,
He didn't show up to court.
winning by hiding.
Because that is a question I have for you later. Is non-conviction from a legal standpoint, because he cites in the Sherman Act that you cannot be denied a job for a non-conviction. I'm just going to get to that question now. Is non-conviction the same as not showing up to
Look,
courts?
you can't be a professional hide and seek player and somehow win the case. That's not how this wins. Is you win
Yeah,
this. Okay, it's just not how it works.
yeah, and I feel like any job, let's say employment law applies to this. Let's assume his legal theory is 100% correct. And employment law applies to this 100%. Can a job legally deny you a job if you have an arrest warrant out for you in another
Not only
state?
that, but in the context in which you have a background check that says you are a fraudulent person where you should not be trusted with rules, money, or anything else, you might not want them running an event where money's taken in and you're adjudicating the rules of a trading card game. Bad idea.
Yeah, yeah. It would be an officially held Pokemon event, and everything would be bootleg. Everything would be bootleg.
And like, let's not forget that I did look at the Pokemon Professor rules for some of it. There's not much out there that I could find, but
Yeah.
there's some of it. One of the rules
Yeah,
is,
I did not want to go through the process of applying to find more of the rules.
I
Like
mean, one of them
that's
is they are allowed to take, I think it's up to $15 per person per ticket. So there's a money aspect to this where they're allowed to kind of sell
yeah,
tickets, and that's mostly, I'm sure, to recoup costs. But yeah, there's a financial aspect to this. The man who's convicted for fraud might not necessarily be trustworthy on that front.
yeah. It's there's a lot here that's just valid reasons, and yet he goes on to say there's nothing Pokemon or Nintendo can say or claim to invalidate the merits of it. He at some point in one of the screenshots I sent you, he complains that his e-filings keep getting denied.
Yeah.
But with the way he types and talks and the things he says, I feel like just an AI overview of did you file this correctly would deny, because he's saying a lot of words that aren't they're just not. Which means it can say to invalidate the merits of it, which means it sticks as long as that sticks. All the state charges stick also under supplemental jurisdiction. They can hire 100 of the world's best attorneys, but without invalidating the claims of the Sherman Act, they have no offense. Kirk, what do you think their chances are of invalidating the claims of the Sherman Act
Oh
are?
God, I see zero. I mean, the poor guy's just he's throwing stuff at the wall. He seems to really think he understands this law. There's nothing here.
Yeah. So you're saying the Sherman Act probably doesn't apply.
I don't think so. I mean, granted, there's unique arguments you could make. There's again, we can be legal nerd all about day, but what he's getting at here does not seem to even support
That's
facially
your
a basis.
YouTube channel,
Yeah, there
Kirk.
you go.
Legal nerd.
The legal nerd,
You got
honestly,
legal
yeah,
bites, you got legal mindset, you got legal ego, and now there's just legal
nerd, yeah,
nerd.
just nerdy stuff.
Okay, yeah, no, that was just another ridiculous one. Oh yeah, here's one of the ones where he starts to say his legal reasoning. Someone says guy's completely out of it. He claims racial discrimination again in the GameStop case. That's also one that you sent me the files for.
Yeah.
It seems that a coworker that was not his boss said, "I hate white people,"
Yep.
and he thinks GameStop owes him over $100,000 because a coworker that's not his boss said, "I hate white people," and then he applied for leave, and the boss said no.
Yeah, that's exactly the funny part about it is it's he's saying he heard one of he seems to suggest that there's like a Latino cabal running out of this one particular GameStop.
Running the GameStop in Iowa, I
Yeah.
think.
And so
It's either Iowa or Illinois, and there's a Latino cabal that's running the entire thing. But for some reason, they hired
oh,
Kyle, one of the whitest men I know,
and so you
Owens.
hire him. He hears this girl shoot her mouth off, which is probably not something you should say at work, but nonetheless, she
Yeah,
says something stupid. He then says, "I want to go." You know, like you said, somehow thinks he needs to go on like leave because of this, and they say, "No, you can't just take leave randomly because you think that that's it." I mean,
yeah.
granted, he could
We
have
have
been.
staffing concerns, and we have, yeah,
And like he could have easily said something like, "Hey, I'd prefer not to be on the same shift with her if possible." That makes
yeah,
sense, but you can't just go like,
yeah.
"Oh, I'm on, bereavement leave for my emotions." Like that's not how this works.
It's not how any of this
Yeah.
works. But then I say, I mean, given the context of just how many lawsuits he's filing, including the Nintendo one trying to sue them for denying him for valid reasons, I arrive at one of two opinions about what I think is happening. He's so narcissistic that every time something bad happens to him, he assumes it's some unfair bullshit like that, even when it could be very likely deserved. Because I could see a world where he's being fired or denied things because of who he is as a person. He says, "Well, I'm a straight white male and a Republican. Clearly, I'm being prejudiced against." Uh, or he doesn't care. He's just looking for any small thing that he can use to file a lawsuit in hopes that he's suing will find it easier to pay out a settlement than go to court, which I think is the more likely of the two.
Seems likely. Yeah.
He responds because he responded to all of my
Of course.
comments. Incorrect, which the moment you start a sentence with incorrect, I
It's just-
on a completely non-literal, non-factual, and I'm not going to do this, Kyle. I want you to get punched in the mouth. Um, It is unlawful in all states to use non-convictions as grounds to deny. You don't have a non-conviction. You
Yeah, the
have a
conviction.
conviction for a felony, and
Yeah.
then you have failed to appear in court, which is why I asked the question, is failing to appear in court and having a warrant for your arrest to compel you to appear in court the same from a legal standpoint and an employment standpoint as a non-conviction? And you effectively said no.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm trying to even think of some possible argument he can make on this. Like,
a way to make it work.
yeah, I'm kind of at a loss here. I don't quite know how he can justify this. I mean, granted, again, these may be bunk, but at minimum, an employer, let's assuming the Pokemon company's employer, which I don't think they are, they have a very good reason to be concerned about a warrant out for your arrest. You might want to go that one tied up before you start applying to jobs
Imagine he tries to host a Pokemon event,
in
and then
Pennsylvania.
at the Pokemon event, he is taken by the federal marshals, and that's not a good look for Pokemon. That makes all of their customers feel unsafe going to
It would make
Pokemon
for a
events.
fantastic YouTube video, very bad for the Pokemon company.
Oh, Penguin Zio would be all over
Oh
it.
God, yeah.
Uh, it's also unlawful to dock an academic grade for a credential, even from a private company. I feel like this is from companies like private institutions that offer credentialing services, not a thing that is only valid within Nintendo. That Pokemon Professor title doesn't mean anything outside of the Pokemon company.
Yeah.
You can't get another job because you have the Pokemon Professor credential. It's not a welding certification. You're not being certified as a phlebotomist. You're not getting a 2-year degree in legal studies from a private institution. You are asking it's the McDonald's Burger College. It only applies to them.
Yeah.
It's so I am I correct in assuming that that doesn't really pass the sniff test of
It doesn't, because like I've actually recently helped IEEE, like the engineering accreditation or organization, with a new test of a test. They were testing a test, and it's funny because he acts as if somehow that there's a bunch of legal provisions on this. There really aren't. Like when they were testing it, we didn't know how they would be grading it. They kind of didn't. That's why they were testing it. And that's kind of part of the animals. The standards are changed. Granted,
yeah.
if you're engaging with a contract with them where you're paying for the test and they have policies and procedures governing it, sure. I looked, I could not find a single policy or procedure governing this Pokemon Company test. I thought about taking it myself just for funsies, didn't end up having the time for it. But I can
Yeah.
guarantee you there's no way in there going, yeah, and we are obligated to give you exactly that grade. I mean, what happens if there's a technical failure? Like they're not going to promise that. Why would they ever promise that?
Yeah, and I feel like too that he repeatedly he does that thing that a lot of people do, especially narcissistic people do, of he's answering a question that's not being asked.
Exactly.
Of he's saying you can't change the grade for those purposes. Cool. That's not why you were denied. You were
Yeah.
denied because of the felony, Kyle, which you were convicted for.
Yep.
But then he goes on, these are all claims in the suit. You have an opinion, and that's fine, but not knowing what is lawful, unlawful, and illegal is why most people just turn the other cheek and leave well enough alone. Either that or not be able to afford an attorney, which is true. People don't know their rights sometimes,
Right.
and that is a valid statement. I'm not gonna inherently say everything he says is wrong just because he's an idiot. I'm just it's just a lot of the stuff he says is wrong.
Right.
That is true. A lot of people do. A lot of people can't afford attorneys. In a video that I have queued up over here, which I'm probably not going to play just so the OBS doesn't crash, but I will explain to you effectively what it said. He tries to claim at one point that lawyers are evil because he went to a bunch of lawyers to file a lawsuit or something,
And they told him
and
no.
they all told him they all told him no, and that their docket was too full, they didn't have enough space. And he's like, "There's no way those law firms were so not busy." I'm like, "Yeah, they that was probably them being polite because they didn't want to
Yeah.
tell you you're an idiot. Like no reputable lawyer would take this case." Um, and they're not going to put their reputation behind your bullshit lawsuit. Uh, Either that or not able to afford an attorney or know how to handle their own cases. So no, what they did is not valid reasons. I think we've discussed that it is. It's illegal on multiple state and federal grounds. I believe we've discussed that it's not. And it's actionable on accounts. Also, I believe we discussed that it's not. And there's evidence to prove all the claims. Not really. So it's not frivolous. Yes, it is. I'm saying this as a layman, but Kirk, am I right?
I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, look,
Okay.
extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. I have not seen a single thing in here so far that even remotely supports what he's saying. I think that if any of these cases are valid, it would be for the reasons that we discussed, like with the housing thing. Maybe there's something there. With the Pokemon Company, the man just needs to take his licks. If there really is an issue here, like just to remind everybody, there's a very easy solution, which is virtually every single court has mechanisms, and you can call the clerk of court and talk to them about this, to mop up bad decisions or to appeal or to do something. Now, granted, sometimes you're just out of time or whatever, but you can get
Mhm.
things expunged. You can appeal for the warrant to arrest. Like if I had something like that hanging around Pennsylvania, I'd be driving up there right now to turn myself in and figure it out on the back
Immediately.
end, right? Because you're like, look, even if it's
Immediately.
bunk, I'm just gonna get this over with because it's gonna hang over my head until then. I want to go, vacation in the Poconos, so I want to be I'm not worried
Yeah.
about getting arrested.
Yeah.
Like, you would go fix it. So there are mechanisms
Yeah.
for this guy if all of this is bunk. He's just not taking it. And that's really where this gets frustrating.
It's suspicious.
Right.
It's kind of suspicious why he wouldn't do
Right.
that. Why he would take the objectively harder route rather than the simpler one. Uh, and go on. If a judge ruled right now based on the supplied evidence, I would win this case. I really don't think you would because evidence. In fact, one of the judges just straight up told you wouldn't. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Department of Education just straight up said no. Because evidence supports the claims. Why don't you request a copy of the actual court case from the court? Thank you, Kirk. Instead of relying on Google Fu rumors and speculation. That would be the smart thing to do. Maybe have an attorney review it with you to help your understanding of everything. Just a thought. Kyle, buddy, buddy, we spent the last hour and 30 minutes doing that, man.
And he's making mistakes here because the fact that they accepted his complaint. I mean, look, the American standards changed a long time ago to allow you to make basic allegations in a complaint that even if you don't have all the facts in front of you, because sometimes you got to go find them through the court proceedings, right? In discovery and things like
You
that.
need the discovery to
Yeah,
get the
like
proof. Yeah.
so notice pleading exists for a reason. He's not required, but I'll tell you right now, even just looking at his complaints, which again, very chat GPT drafted, there's a lot of statements in there to just make a lot of muster. So I'll give you an example. The one we were talking about where he claims that his room was too small to support him and his service animal. He never explains what that actually means. I don't know, like,
Yeah,
is it like a studio?
I wanted that information. I wanted to understand because he says it's a dorm style room, but what does that mean? Because you can have a dorm style room that's the size of this room. You can
Right.
have a dorm style room that is like prison dorms or some military dorms where it's 100 people packed into a single. That doesn't have an actual definition behind it.
Right. And like if you're a good lawyer,
And
you don't
why
have to
is that dispositive to him having a service animal?
right. And like you're like, look, granted, you don't have to plead everything, but at least facially get into it. Say, look, my room is too small because it's a, 3x3 thing with a twin bed in there and a chest of drawers, and that's it. And my dog is really big, and they knew this, and they have other alternatives available, which I think would be kind of the critical thing here is like there's other places he could be put. You'd have
Yeah,
to kind of get into that, right? A little bit, not everything, but you'd at least want to facially show it. For him, it's just
yeah,
like, no, it's too small. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
okay, you might want
And
to get
it
into
seems more
that.
like I don't like it.
And
I want more.
at the complaint stage, you don't have to show too much, but really, as an attorney, you look at these things, you go, it would have been much better. And if it was been drafted by attorney, it would have included a bit more to explain this. So if you pick it up, your gut goes, okay, I see why you're pissed off about this. Now let's talk about it. What he just says is,
You want the
trust me,
sleepy
bro.
juror to, yeah, you
Yeah.
want the juror that's half asleep to look at it and be like, no, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, because remember,
Yeah,
there's the defendant's going to answer. So what you want to do is kind of, at minimum, put out some facts that they should theoretically be answering. And in this case, he's just not. Like in all of these, he's not
yeah,
really.
yeah. It's just, it's incredible nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, it sounds like that mysterious felony is some Jared from Subway type shit. That was not my opinion, Kyle. I did not state that. That was Alice Huoka. But we're going to get into that later, Kyle, because you posted something really fucking stupid
Oh,
yesterday.
no.
According to one of the other commenters, it was a forgery charge, or at least that one's the one they found. The fact that he refused to elaborate on that one does elaborate on the misdemeanors is suspicious, in my opinion. This is where he goes on to say the 2011-2012 forgery is not included in the case because First Advantage removed it within 24 hours and replaced it with the finalized version because it's not part of the case. It's why I didn't explain it. But to me, factually, it seems like if Nintendo denied him based on a background check, it doesn't matter whether he wants that felony as a part of the case. It's a part of the case. He doesn't get to decide what they use against him. That's not how the law works, from my
And
understanding.
it's funnier that he's filed the thing that makes him look bad, and like he's admitted it as an exhibit to his complaint. So
Yeah,
it's on the
yeah. The Department of Education told him go away, and
like sorry.
well, that was a different
Oh
case.
yeah,
Yeah,
but like he's including so many things that are on there for showing why things happened, or at least are so damaging to him that if you don't want in the case, at minimum, try not to file it. Now, I think you probably should file it, but like
yeah.
for this case, the Pokemon one, yo, you filed it yourself as an exhibit. Now it's part of the case.
That's on you, and you're apparently a legal expert. I'm wondering if he legitimately has an AI system that's going through his computer and searching for files and being like, this looks relevant. I've also went public many times that I've pretty much exhausted it. When a case is filed, only merits and evidence valid to the claim are looked at, unless it's raised in discovery. It was raised in discovery before they filed the case because it's part of the background check. But still only gets added or considered if it's relevant to the filing or a claim. It is here. It's not here. It's not how how.
A, it is. B,
For a
you
second, I saw
filed it
you
with
adjust
it.
your glasses. I thought you were about to go like, "Oh my
Yeah, I'm
god."
trying not to desperately. I'm trying like, okay, just it's all terrible because it's like he filed it
Around
himself.
slide 30, the professionalism is gonna drop.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Because
gone.
like he's filed it himself. So at this point, like you have conceded it's
You-
relevant. It's already in there because you put
It's-
it in there.
It's like you're trying to defend yourself from a murder charge and you accidentally submit the gun with your fingerprints on it as evidence.
With your
Like,
confession saying I did it. Yeah, it's just like
and the ballistic example of like
Oh.
how this matches up and everything. It's like, no, dude, you fucked yourself.
like
It-
you saved them a lot of time, admittedly. Like on the four corners of it.
he is the defendant's best lawyer.
Oh my
Like, he
God.
is. I include the game in the suit as strategy, but you also said that you didn't want it in the suit. So within this very paragraph, he's kind of contradicting
Very
himself.
interesting strategy.
Oh, I don't want it there, but I'm including it in strategy. so I do want it there, but I'm getting it removed, which also seems like some legal fuckery that might get him sanctioned or something, or might get someone that actually has a law degree sanctioned because they're performing legal fuckery. They should know better, and the
It's,
bar can tell them
it's,
no. It's some Better Call Saul shit,
it's
to
a
be quite
fun legal
frank.
handicap he's given himself. He's like, I'm too good at this. I'm going to
Yeah,
make it worse for myself just to see how it
yeah, he's
goes.
playing on hard mode. This dude is playing life on hard mode. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah.
Now Nintendo must either confirm or deny it that they denied you for a felony, which they're allowed to do. Either way helps my case. Nope, because if they confirm it, it's an FCRA violation on their part. If they deny it, then they have to settle for admission to federal and state violations that you have a felony and they don't want to give you permission to be around children. I've been doing this a long time. It's all about strategy, legal posture, and being responsive. Case text law only goes so far in the courtroom. The way this was filed means admission of one thing or the other. It's an admission of you that you have a valid reason for them to not get. I Kirk, can you please
I
can
have
you
no
make
idea what
this
the
make
strategy
sense?
is. It's funny
So
because
no.
it's one of those things where like I genuinely am perplexed as to what the logic is here, other than playing on hard mode. Because it's granted, like part of me is happy that he's being forthcoming with the court because it makes things easier for the respondent. Like you know, the defendant's going to have an easier time. But like there is no strategy here. The reality is you're giving the court facial proof through actual evidence that what you're saying is so out of whack that you're asking them to come up with this unique novel theory like on the Sherman Act and a bunch of other stuff that they're just going to dismiss out of hand. I mean, it just the problem is you've gummed up the system. So granted, it's going to be a pain in the butt for everyone involved. But like the more you file facts, the worse your case looks. That's not a good position to be in as your first filing.
I I I I thought so, but I, as he points out, I'm not a lawyer, so I had a lawyer check it. Um, Okay, I think we talked about this one
Oh yeah,
already.
yeah.
Assuming his legal theory is correct, can he be denied a volunteer position? We basically yeah. But I like the way I worded this, and I hope you do too. Assuming his legal theory is correct that he can't be denied a volunteer position based on a non-conviction, one, does refusing to appear in court and have a warrant out for your arrest count as a non-conviction in this instance? Which you basically like it.
It's like
uh
non-conviction in the most generic sense of like they didn't catch me.
yeah. And two, does the felony count?
I would presume like he seems to think that its age is somehow relevant. I'm sorry, and granted, yes, we want to have a world where you can clean these things up, you can get them expunged, maybe things kind of time out. But my man, there's a bigger issue here, which is the fact that you can't go in the state of Pennsylvania. So,
Yeah,
like,
that is
sorry, like
that is
the Malo of this. Moreover, the Pokemon company's not bound to like putting a time filter on this, going, let me only consider the really
Yeah, man,
relevant things.
you have a felony in the current way the legal system works. You have that forever. Like that's
It's like
if you were this legal genius that you think you are, you would have gotten it expunged by now, or at least sealed by now, so it wouldn't appear
and
during
you
this
should.
background
Like, if
check.
this is bunk or if you've turned a new leaf, then go do it. People can help you. In fact,
Yeah,
most law schools, I think, I'm sure in Pennsylvania, the same case, they can help you with this. They exist for this. But,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. It's it, I think we already talked about this too. Does this the fact that this is public release as a volunteer position and one that did not require him to accrue any costs to participate, he did not have to pay registration costs, exam fees, or any other associated fee with applying to this, impact the validity of his employment law theories. You can't be denied a volunteer position based on non-conviction. We kind of went over that. That it's based on how they want to interpret what is a volunteer.
yeah.
When it comes to employment law, you effectively said it's for things like interns. It's for like if you have someone that is controlling your schedule, controlling like what you do and where you do. This isn't even that. This is a
Not even
certification
close. Yeah.
for
Like,
him to be allowed to volunteer. So like they are controlling his schedule so little that he doesn't have one.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, they're applying conditions on his ability to do things under the Pokemon IP, which is very normal, but he's still a
Yeah.
volunteer. There's nothing here that points to me. I mean, hell, the front page of the Pokemon Professor thing says it's a volunteer thing. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know how you can get past
That
this.
is I saw that immediately.
Yeah.
Uh does his assertion that he's innocent of the misdemeanor charges, despite his apparent refusal to appear in court to attest to them at all, matter from a legal perspective in him being denied the privilege to participate as a volunteer for a private company? Does having a warrant for your arrest
Yeah.
is,
I mean, and
is that a valid reason?
And it's again, not to defend Pokemon too much, but like, look, they're not adjudicators of fact. They got to look at the four corners of this thing and go, look, I have to trust what the reporting agencies are telling me. They're telling me that there's some stuff floating around. I don't know quite what it is. It's probably some secretary looking at it, but it looks scary. It looks violent, and it looks like he's unable to enter an entire state. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
that is enough for you. You don't have to heavily consider this and say, hey, we want fun, cool people who don't have bad track records involved in this. He doesn't count.
Yeah. That he doesn't count at all. Also, just something I just realized: all the Pokemon professors are named after trees, and the one state that he's not allowed into is the state that's named after a
Oh
forest.
my God.
Pennsylvania means Penn's Wood. It was founded by William Penn. Sylvania means woods.
Oh,
He's not allowed into the state named after a forest,
he's gonna sue the state of
and he's
Pennsylvania if you
trying to
don't
be a
watch it.
Pokemon
Oh
professor.
God.
Yeah,
It's all gonna come downhill from
because
here.
I grew up in Pennsylvania. I had to learn all that. It's like
Oh,
you're in one of the most forested states in the country. You're not allowed into, and you're trying to be a Pokemon
he's gonna
professor.
end up
Fantastic.
suing the state of Pennsylvania if we don't watch it.
I would love to see him try. Okay, contact. Here, we're going to get to some of his more public
Oh
statements.
yeah.
A lot of this does not matter. I went over this in my last video. I'm going to point out like one or two things of this, but effectively, 90% of this is I just always wanted to do this since ever I was a kid. Oh my cheebers. And then you go on to here, and where is it? Again, he just keeps failing. He talks about how unfair it is that children have so many activities available to them and adults don't have them. I don't know about you. I'm an adult. I have a pretty active social life and I'm a nerd. You know what I do with most of my time? I play video games, I LARP, I go to D&D, like that like
There's plenty of things out there. Yeah. I mean, granted, he seems like
you
he's in a
not
small
being
town.
allowed in those spaces, he chose to live there.
That's true because he's running from the cops.
Because
But
he's running for the cops.
like,
He chose to listen when you're on the run and the police are after you. There's so little that you can do
it's
for
hard to
fun. You're
maintain an
always
active social
watching your
life.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's one of the parts of it, just because this is one of the parts that I roasted him for in the last video, and I want to bring it back up just to see your face. Adults need a public gathering thing for their mental health. What a public gathering thing? Okay. One, there's so many of those for their mental health, friendship, and possibly to find mates to start a family.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's a face. That's a face. That might be a thumbnail
We're
face.
officially in
That is
Russell
a
Greer
thumbnail face.
territory. We're
Yep.
officially in like I need the brothel to find my wife territory. Or
Yep.
was it
Oh, it gets worse. It gets
Oh
so
God.
much worse, Kirk.
Taylor, like we're officially in like Taylor Swift needs to respond to my emails because this is how I get a wife territory. Like we're really in
Yeah.
Russell Greer territory, man. Holy
Yeah.
crap.
These
Oh,
things plague millennials like death, and there's no remedy provided by communities, local governments, or the state or federal government. I believe that's a huge mistake. One, there is a remedy provided by communities. It's just you have to be an active part of that community, which means you have to be welcomed into that community. And I doubt you're welcomed into many communities. In
oh
fact,
no.
I have a feeling that the screenshot at the end of this post is going to mean you are specifically legally not welcomed in a few communities. But also, does it just casually, does the local government, the state government, or the federal government have any responsibility legally for your social
No,
life?
absolutely not. Like, and granted, like, look, nerd communities can be very selective in some ways about who they allow. Like, I'm sure we've all seen like con communities get real
Yeah.
picky. I get it,
Oh,
but
yeah.
boy, part of the reason that exists is for people like this, where like they're a known problem and the word needs to go
Yeah.
out on the grapevine. Yo, don't hang out with them; they're
Yeah.
dangerous.
I've been a LARPer for 6 years. I participated in a few different LARPs. There's good ones, there's bad ones, there's bad eggs, there's good eggs. For the most part, a lot of nerd communities want to grow. That's what they
Right.
want. But they also are very selective to not let people in that might be problematic because one, they don't want to get that reputation, and two, there are a lot of nerds grew up being bullied. I don't know what your upbringing was like. I was a nerd. I got bullied. My dad told me if someone hits you, you hit them fucking back. So it stopped. But like I can get that. I can understand that. The problem is it's no, even if you have no community for yourself, Kyle, it's no one's responsibility to give that to you, and it's definitely not a private company's responsibility.
And honestly, sometimes the way to fix this is if you're a nice person and people want to hang out with you, it fixes it. Being the known litigant who wants to sue
Yeah.
75 people is not the way to make friends.
So you heard it here. The professional legal advice from Kirk Sigmund is if you want to make friends, don't be a
Don't be
dick.
dick. Yeah.
Um, um, as far as the misdemeanor charges out of PA, the court has ignored legal filings to the case. I'm willing to bet you filed them wrong. They refused to file or accept any filings I made by mail. It's been left in limbo since and is not extraditable. The charges relate to an incident when I was a trucker for a couple years and I was attacked by another trucker. I should have the right to defend myself and my safety and my dog's well-being without getting slammed with criminal charges from a Commonwealth state. Sadly, that didn't happen. I also looked up the PA statutes, and none of what I did falls within criminal code statutes of the three false charges the officer slapped me with. And there's a thing that might be a valid thing. He might have defended
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah, we
Go to
don't know.
court.
Like the reality of it is, if that's true, granted, look,
Go to
courts are
court.
unreliable. It's scary, but you should go, right? The
Yeah.
idea is not to hide. The idea is to come forward and say, look, this is what happened. You know, I was out in the truck stop. Some guy jumped me, and I had to defend myself. Sure,
Yeah.
like maybe he was the victim of a cop who just made the wrong call and arrested him for it. Granted, but like
Yeah.
You don't run
But
from
a
the
cop might
cop.
have arrested both of them and just been like, I have no fucking idea what's going on
Both of you
here.
are going to
We'll
jail.
let the we're gonna put you both in jail. You're gonna get a court date. You can solve this then.
Right.
And it could have been left there. But as we talked about earlier, he has a weapons charge on that,
Yeah.
which he has a felony, which means he can't have that weapons charge, which means he was, if that weapons charge is at all true, he is breaking the law because he is a felon with a weapon.
And maybe it's like a tire iron or something. I don't know. Like, I would love to know what's going on here, but granted, like,
Yeah, I would love more of the details for
this may come
sure.
out if he were to go to court.
Yeah, he could give all those
Yeah.
details. He could solve all of this by just appearing on time
Like,
to a place. And also, it doesn't seem like he has any employment right now. So like what is the thing that's stopping him from driving to Pennsylvania?
I mean, and the reality of it is, like, look, there's a way in which you go about this where you go, look, I just need to clean this up. I know this, I'm screwed. You can ask for a public defender. It's not like the law is going to forego or going to railroad you without a lawyer. He really should get someone over there to help him because, candidly, having a good public defender is way more valuable than you defending yourself. They know the judge, they know the process, everything else. They can help you.
I feel
There
like
are
even a
options.
bad lawyer is better
Better
than
than
no
him. Yeah,
lawyer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
anything would be better than what he's doing right now. Let's put it that way.
A bad lawyer is better than not showing up to court because I have a feeling that failure to appear, well, maybe it might not be directly used against him. It's probably gonna. Also, can't you just be found guilty in absence
I
because you
believe in
didn't
some
show up?
cases you could. I mean, I'm not sure about this case, but
Yeah.
like he just needs to get it over with, man. Like if he's got a case, go talk to a public defender, figure it out.
Yeah. And here he talks about if he had slapped an underage teen or held out his wanker in public, he would get it, even though they weren't convictions. Again, I think he's muddling up the concept of a
Yeah.
non-conviction and not appearing in court. But ultimately, this is all just my life is so hard. Please give me money. Does any of this sob story make his legal case any more convincing?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, if it's
Okay.
true, then there's ways, there's avenues for him to handle it. What he's doing is not handling it.
Yeah. And then right here, he says the statement, I don't sue private citizens unless they have a home and have stable employment, but all who have slandered me have received a lifetime ban from Game Master. I don't think people go to it. So, but can this statement be used against him? Because when I read the statement initially, my first thought was if he's saying, I will not sue someone unless they have stable employment and a home, what he is instead saying is, I will not sue someone unless it is profitable to me.
Yeah, and I know what he's trying to say, which is like I'm trying not to hurt the small guy, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
and granted, there's this concept people use term judgment proof when someone's just like they don't have any money, so why would you sue them? But in this case, like it does, again, the big picture here just looks bad. It makes you look like you're going after people because you know it would hurt. And he said that explicitly before, but especially there, it's like, I know you mean to say I'm not screwing with people who are like me, who don't have income, who don't have anything. I don't want to mess with them. What this all sounds like is I am trying to extort the big guy and hope that they settle and give me money and then I'm rich or something like that.
Yeah. It doesn't read well, especially with his history.
No,
It does
God
not
no.
read well by any means. And is that something that could be used against him in court? Is that something that the defense could potentially use to say, like, look, listen, this guy is clearly not this is not the righteous thing that he's saying it is. This is not about morality. This is not about him being wrong. This is about him looking for potential sources of income, and we just happen to be one.
Yeah, and if it got to that point, I mean, really, what I think any lawyer in the federal cases are going to do is try to get this, kind of struck and essentially dismissed on the grounds that there's a failure to state a claim upon relief can be granted, because there's no valid in like a violation that he's claiming half the
Yeah.
time. But
Yeah.
the reality of this is that we get all the way down to court, sure, like if the judge allows it, which is not always guaranteed depending on the circumstances, you do want to show that this guy very clearly is trying to gin up damages that don't exist just to punish people. Again, looking at the same stuff we looked at earlier, and he's explicitly targeting people where he knows that it will hurt and where they'll have money to pay him. So yeah, it looks bad. It might come into the court.
Now, we talked a little bit earlier about whether or not public statements can be used against you in court, and effectively, yes.
It's
If
relevant.
they're
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
relevant, if they're relevant, yeah. When it comes to like character stations, then that makes it that's usually the defendant has to bring in the character evidence and stuff, right? Correct, yeah. But here's this. A post he made on May 25th.
Oh
Doom law
God.
firm at your peril. We're booking up fast. June and July. Well, this is actually a repost from something. And July have been booked. Next appointment openings will be December 15th to 2026 to January 15th, 2027. First of all, does he get to choose when the court case is?
No, I mean, is he talking about when he's filing? Is he scheduling this shit
No,
out?
no, 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 no. What he is saying is he's publicly saying he is looking for people to give him a reason to sue them.
Oh my God. Oh boy.
He is making the comment that's if like right there, if anyone wants to get sued this summer, please book your Doom appointment now. To me, this alone
Oh
is
God.
evidence that he's a vexatious litigant because this is evidence that, from my understanding of it, that he is not just filing lawsuits when he is wronged. He is looking to be wrong so that he can
Right.
file lawsuits.
Yeah, he's looking for any excuse to have something where he can go ask for money. And it's look, granted, sometimes you just end up with a lot of lawsuits just existing in the world. That happens to companies all the time for stupid reasons. But like
Yeah,
this, even if we take it outside the legal context, this makes you look bad. You should not be saying things
yeah,
like this. It makes you look
yeah,
like you are the bad actor in here. And what I've told many of my clients over many years is, yes, the law says what it says, but in every single step, you need to make sure that you look like you're the good guy. And that includes, for example, the quintessential example, and this applies to everybody listening. Your emails need to be read by someone who's disinterested and who doesn't like you in the best way possible, meaning you can't be sassy or stupid in your emails, your Facebook posts, whatever else. So, what
yeah,
that means in translation is you've got to zoom out from yourself and think, what is a jury or judge who doesn't know me and doesn't like me very much gonna interpret from this if they're sort of
yeah,
just dispassionate? And this just makes you
yeah,
look like you are a, like you said, a vexatious litigant looking for targets, and that just doesn't look good to anybody.
yeah. It looks like the quintessential like slip and fall chaser. Like
Exactly.
this, like yeah, yeah. And here's another one. Like flies to shit, just can't get enough. Jack and I are about to go on our morning walk. 20 bucks says the police will engage in police criminal harassment again over Lauren's IA pet tag and retaliate again for expressing my First Amendment. Like flies to shit, man, they're digging their graves deep. Again, this looks like he's looking for lawsuits.
And I'm wondering what even his
This
First Amendment. I'm curious what he's saying in public or
I'm
doing.
not sure. I know at least from what I was able to find, the pet tag case is based around his dog being registered as a psychiatric service animal.
Yeah.
He says he had an attorney do that.
Attorney
I don't
certify it, which doesn't
that's
happen.
no, that psychologists do that. You need a psychiatrist to do that because I almost had my psychiatrist like be able to get my dog registered as a service animal because I have PTSD. Uh, that's not a lawyer doesn't certify that.
I have no
That
power to do
is
these things.
it's effectively a prescription. That's effectively what it is. It's a prescription. Like they write a thing, you send it to people, the government sends you the thing, and you got the certification that your dog is a service animal. So I don't know how the attorney did that. So I kind of disbelieve what he's saying here, but this also does just look
And it makes me wonder because
like
like cops don't bother people just walking their dog around normally. It makes me begin to wonder, okay, something you're
what is he
doing,
doing?
yeah, you're doing something that's
Yeah,
getting their attention. They probably know about you
and
already.
again, he's claimed a lot of racial discrimination, age discrimination, sex discrimination. He is the most average person in the world. He is 34 years old, the most average age you can be. He is a straight, white, conservative Christian man. I don't think he's getting harassed by the cops unless he's doing something. That is entirely my assumption. That is
Yeah.
entirely yes, you can be in situations where people that are not necessarily part of a minority group or a protected class can be prejudiced against. That is a thing that can happen. Uh I don't I I got the inkling that that is not what's happening.
There's more to the story, and that is usually the bad sign when people
Yeah.
are saying these facial things like my First Amendment rights are being violated because of my dog's tag. It's like, so why are the
What did
cops
you
talking
say?
to you in the first place? Like, what? How did we get to
Yeah.
this point exactly?
It's very much one of those things I try to follow in my own personal life of I will always say the full truth whether it is positive or dispositive to me because you know when I say something my word holds
Right.
because if it was bad for me I would have said it too. And I've done that on my channel. I've said when I was wrong in cases. I make it a point to admit when I'm wrong and admit when I don't understand things. He doesn't seem to want to do that so he just looks like a crazy person.
Right.
But here's a few questions. Does this all the evidence we have so far would you with all this and mind you these were two posts.
Yeah.
I have 6 terabytes of storage on my hard drive. I do not have enough storage to screenshot all the posts
Yeah.
where he has said some stuff like this. I just pulled a few examples that were immediately available. Uh, but with all of that, would you see Mr. Kyle Owens here being soon declared a vexatious litigant?
So it's going to be tough. It's going to take some time because remember, it's oftentimes a judgment made by a judge where they're like, okay, I've officially decided this guy is causing trouble. Like it's funny, different states have different ways. Funny enough, Illinois used to not even have this policy. It's only recently that seems to be into four, but that's on the state level. But the problem here is some of these cases are filed different places, so it's going to be kind of like, departments aren't talking to departments. It's going to be harder for them to figure this out. But that's kind of why I was joking earlier about making kind of a package of all of these evidence
Yeah,
plus all of his filings, because really they need to zoom out and see the big pictures. Like this guy's planning 75 some lawsuits if he actually gets his way.
yeah.
Uh,
There's things that if it's one or two Z, it's not that bad, but when in combination with each other, they become bad.
and
It becomes
And so a judge is going to have to sit down and go, okay, the default rule here is we never, ever, ever want to discourage people from filing. Sometimes they have valid, and we've talked it. Some of these might be valid. So for them, they're going to have to go, okay, what is the appropriate way to do this? Usually it's framed as an injunction saying, I, the judge or someone similar, has to approve you filing this before you do. In my view, that actually would be pretty reasonable because there may be some valid stuff here that he has to say, but I think that on the floor of it, he might need to be immediately told, no more chat GPT filings. I want you to actually state something in your own words as to why you think you're entitled to this. No more junk that you're copying, pasting literally from the output of an LLM. I want to see fulsome statements as to what actually happened that's coming from your mouth. That might be reasonable. Now, granted, some judges may disagree, but like that seems fair, right? It's not taking him out of the legal system. He has a right to be there, but
Mhm.
he does need to do it properly. And the fear here, again, there's a few instances this already happened in published decisions. His ability to use ChatGPT makes this so much worse because then he can just fart these things out much more quickly. Like back in the day
Yeah,
when I started as a junior attorney, the big cases that would, or the big companies that would be get constant cases from like crazy people, these were like handwritten 2-page complaints that kind of were just junk, and they were easier to handle because then you could just read the thing. You understood what they were trying to get at. You could easily address it. With this, you're fighting against LLM output, so it's way more wasted time. And so
yeah,
if you're a court, you've got to think, okay, I don't want to just take his ability to do this away from him entirely because he's entitled to justice. But yeah, he can't just be copy and pasting his way into 75
yeah,
lawsuits as a pro se litigant with no fees
yeah,
paid and just causing hell because he says he wants to cause hell. And oh, by the way, half of these
yeah,
are predicated on questionable interpretations of the law that he's trusting to an LLM. Like all of this is a bad idea.
yeah. And it's one of those things where either way, it's putting a burden on the
Oh
court because
God, yes.
either he is burdening the court because he has 75 lawsuits, or he's burdening the court because now there's someone that has to look at the 75 lawsuits and decide if there's any weight to them at
Yeah,
all.
think about it. Like even the
Um,
Pokemon one we looked at, that's a ton of pages of just random
that's
junk from
54
him.
pages, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
and his
nonsense.
arguments are, again, copied from ChatGPT. It's confusing and it includes facts that don't matter. It's not well drafted. It's a pain in the butt for anybody.
Yeah. Uh, Second question. You can see it. I can see the reflection of green in your glasses. Was Kyle Owens publicly posting any of these things at all in Intelligent
Oh
Movement?
God, no. Yeah, it's when you see those the one valid thing you see in TV show like dramas, like legal dramas, is when the defense lawyer comes in and says shut the hell up. That's so true. Like if you have a valid claim,
Stop fucking
stop
talking.
talking. Like your job, if even if you have the most strong case in the world, is you want to stop talking because
Yeah,
candidly, you just don't want to. You could be misinterpreted, even if you have the best intentions in the world. What he's doing is
yeah,
just making himself look worse and worse and worse and worse. The
yeah,
best thing he could possibly do is shut up and let these things play out. Honestly,
yeah. If you have 100% of a valid case, if you have 100% the correct answer, the most talking will do is talk yourself into a wrong answer.
absolutely,
That's something I'd tell my guys all the time when they're going up for boards is say the right thing and then shut the fuck up
exactly.
because the more you talk, the more likely you're gonna be wrong.
And like it happens to the best, smartest people in the world. We've had situations, especially from my clients, where they, put blog posts out there that inadvertently kind of made them look bad or conceded something they didn't necessarily mean. And it's not their fault. They're smart. It's just that you have to be judicious when you're involved in, 4, 5, 75 lawsuits.
4, 5,
It's all the same. Yeah, it's
75.
all the same.
And I don't think that's counting the criminal
Oh
charges.
no, he's hiding from those. It's fine. Those don't
Yeah,
count.
it's fine. Those ones don't matter. Um, and we already talked about in general, his public statements can be used against him in lawsuits as long as they are relevant. Which, especially, I think when you're making the argument of vexatious litigation, most of these are relevant
Yeah, I mean, it at
because
least shows that he's got a bad motive to some of this.
they attest to his mental state in filing these, which is yeah. Uh, and this is kind of I guess the kicker question here. We've basically said that probably vexatious litigant. Can't say with 100% certainty because that's up to the courts to decide. Uh, Is there any way the multiple courts he has filed these cases in, these lawsuits in, can be made aware of his history as a vexatious litigant, and can that impact those court cases? I.e., if one court determines that he is a vexatious litigant, can that court or the associated attorneys or a third person like me or you or any of the people watching this video, not that I'm saying do it, but if Kirk says it's legal, can they somehow make these other courts where he's filing these lawsuits aware of this history as a vexatious litigant? Is there a way for a layman or a third person or a non-affiliated attorney or court to make a court aware of something that might be relevant to cases that are on their docket,
Yeah, I mean,
essentially?
easiest thing you could possibly do, honestly, is just collect all this information in one place that show pretty definitively what he's
Like a
doing.
2 hour long video
Yeah,
that
that
we're
helps.
recording
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, little good old-fashioned Google document, good old-fashioned call-out
Yeah.
document. And the reason why is the best venue for it, honestly, is going to be the attorneys who are responding probably could have that information. They might not use it initially because if you're in a responding to any of these allegations, your best argument probably still is, hey, he's failed to state the claim. This is a misinterpretation of the law, yada, yada, yada. But having that information available to you would be valuable in a variety of contexts, including but not limited to if you have to say this is a vexatious litigant, if you have to show the court there's a problem, then it's all in one place. But I would say
Yeah.
I would be kind of careful. There are mechanisms in which kind of a third party can step into some cases and kind of provide information. But remember, this guy is cruising for lawsuits. I wouldn't necessarily try to involve yourself in one with him because he's going to be a problem.
That is fair.
Like he's going to.
I'm not going to. This video is probably this video will hopefully be the last one I do on
Yeah,
him.
and like
I want Kyle Owens out of my life, but I couldn't not do this.
Of course, and like you don't want to involve yourself too much. It's one of those things where he's an amusing person. I hope that the valid cases he has do continue through. But for the BS ones, like the court needs to probably know, and the best person to tell them will be the defense once they look at the voluminous amounts of information online and go, "Oh my God, this guy's a problem."
Yeah. And that makes sense. Now, I got one more one that's tangentially related to Kyle Owens and his concept of legal theory, and then I got like 20 more slides that are shitting on him. So the one more one is one of the ones I referenced a little bit earlier. He made a post and he put out a video titled "How to File Your Own Federal Lawsuit as a Pro Se and Engineer."
Oh boy.
He's got this, and this down here is a 2-hour long video. During this 2-hour long video, he refers to himself as Kyle Owens, a professional pro se litigant for 10 years that has won multiple cases, done this, blah, blah, blah. And he is giving what could be easily interpreted as legal advice to people on how to file and fight cases as a pro se litigant. He does not have a legal degree. He is not a member of any bar, as far as I'm aware of. Probably a lot of bars, but not the bar. He doesn't have a sense of community, so he probably doesn't go to bars. Actually, he actively talks about not going to bars in a later post. So no, he's a member of literally no bars. Could this be considered the unauthorized practice of law? Because he's giving legal advice.
He's getting dangerously close. I mean, lucky to him, it's not close enough to provide specific legal advice where he could probably argue he's just talking generally. But the second he begins to tell people, like in the comments, here's what you should do and here's how you should file this, then you're getting real close.
Let's skip ahead to a concept that I was going to keep for when we're shitting on him. Here you go. This is I have a few questions related to this one, but this is someone that left a comment under one of my pinned posts where I directly said, "Kyle, I saw you posted in my last video. If you want to reach out and do a video," and I offered him the opportunity to do a video with me, and he can say his piece. And what I was probably going to do was reach out to you and be like, "Hey, I got this asshole that's going to come on. You want to be a surprise guest? Yeah. You want to be a surprise guest live and see how he responds to you?"
Oh God.
And he never responded to that. But he did respond to it. He didn't respond to it with the desire to,
of course, no, of course,
state his case to someone that has a larger audience than he does. But effectively, this guy goes on. I've watched bad sitcoms. I really love the show Night Court. It's a great show.
Oh yeah.
You'll see why I'm bringing that up. Game Master at Y2K, Kyle Owens. Interesting. I suppose you're a great example that shows how the law really works and how broken it really is. All you need is just a lot of knowledge and note of how it all works is all LOL, or so it seems. I'd argue that that is not justice at all. That is walled system. This is in response to the earlier comments where he's talking about his forgery charges and how he had to fight for himself. That's what this is responding to. That is walled system only accessible by those with proper law knowledge and or money. Where's the justice in that? That lawyers get to practice law and regular people. Okay. What the hell is the justice is even the justice system. Do you think it's just? I wouldn't think so after reading your comment. That's crazy. Anyway, can you sue YouTube for all the demonetization going on all these channels and blah, blah, blah?
Oh
YouTube
gosh.
blatantly lies, blah, blah, and it goes on that. And what about the fact that YouTube is broken, that nobody can just copyright claim your own material and blah, blah, blah? What about the EOLA and TOS, or even though those are legally blinding, blah, blah, blah? Also, what charities are you giving to just out of curiosity? Also, how did you even start all this? Court cases cost a lot of money and they take forever. Are you saying that you're your own lawyer since you have 2 years in legal study? The justice system is such a mystery to me. Oh, shucks, Mr. Kyle. I just don't know. I have this question right here. Is there any world where he didn't pay a guy to post that
Oh
comment?
God. I
Because that is the only positive comment that he gets on any. There are hundreds of comments across those two videos. Is there any world where this is not him, a friend of his, or someone that he paid? Because I doubt he has friends. That someone that he paid to post this to set up a straw man so that he could then respond with this.
Yeah, I feel like either it's that or someone who's goading him into providing more information. Like there's a dangerous part of this where it's like it could be a very clever troll who's trying to get more information.
And then he goes to say, "Yeah, you can sue. You can sue YouTube for demonetization. That doesn't pass the sniff test to me because again, it's a private corporation, and you are not an employee. You are a freelancer. Like I am monetized on my YouTube channel. I signed a thing with them. Like I signed a deal with them, but that deal is more so I get to utilize their platform, and they pay me money based on the ad rev split of it all. But that doesn't necessarily like they could just take away my monetization at any point they want. They don't have any obligation to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of complaints about the YouTube monetization system in general, but you're right. Like at the end of the day, it's a voluntary contract you're entering into to provide content for money. Like, granted, you might quibble about whether or not they're holding their end of the bargain, yada yada yada. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's they're not required to host you or pay you money.
Yeah.
You know?
It'd be one thing if they continued to serve ads on the content that I put out under that contract, but then not give me my
Right. I
monetization,
mean,
because that's different. But when you're demonetized, ads are gone on that video, so that is not a breach of
we
contract.
just
That
don't want
is,
your videos to make money because our ad
yeah,
sponsors probably don't want to be on your videos. Candidly, that's usually their excuse.
yeah. That's what it amounts. It reminds me a lot of when everyone's screaming about First Amendment when Facebook or Twitter shuts people down, and it's like, no, that's a private company. The First
Yeah, they
Amendment applies
just
to the government. It does not apply to private companies.
right.
That's not how this works. And then he just goes on. Shadowban comments. He's responding to this almost as if someone had set up a straw man for him to answer questions that he thought would make him look good, is what I'm getting out of this. But just to get to the charity one, because this was largely meant to be shitting on him, and then you said something. I was like, I got to show you this. Answer: what charities are you giving to just out of curiosity? Ones I trust or ran in the past. So ones he trusts or ones he's in charge of, which is a way to launder money. Cancer programs are always off the table because we've had a well-known cancer cure for hundreds of years, modernly called Isiac tea.
Oh
I
boy.
worked in medical research for about a year.
Like
This has nothing to do with the law, Kirk. So listen, I already told you there's a second channel. This is when we start shitting on him, Kirk. This are you we can close up the legal
I'm
analysis and we can
amazed by
start
this.
the
Like
shit on him.
he's officially saying, "Oh, it just but for everyone drinking this tea, we wouldn't have cancer. It's totally fine."
Yeah, that's how this works.
Oh,
Yeah, this is this is nonsense. And then also ask, how do you start all this? I've been a professional pro se litigant since 2013. I've won 21 criminal cases. You didn't show up. There's a difference. And also you have a felony on your record and a arrest warrant. Those are ones you did. One, those are ones that you didn't win, first of all. And two, I get that sometimes the legal system can be a bit punitive to some people. You have 21 criminal cases filed against you over the course of your life. When you're 34 years old, what the f are you
yeah.
doing,
There's
Kyle?
a certain point where you've collected so much nonsense that you're the problem, not the society. But one fun thing I
Yeah,
want to point out is that he mentions here about this whole complaint that like the ABA accreditation thing. I actually did look into briefly what he's talking about with this Rule 703 change. The change is not what he says it is. What happened was at some point they clarified that like there's certain species of like graduate level degrees that they don't want to qualify as like a law degree for the purposes of getting that. He was always not qualified. The
yeah.
2 years of associateship degree he got, even if he got the full degree, is not sufficient. Was never sufficient. That was the case well before 2025.
He has
Um,
60 college credits.
yeah, it's
That's
like
it.
that doesn't. I hate to break it to you, but nowhere in the United States does that qualify you to practice law. Granted, there are some states like California, like what was it? One of the Kardashian sisters infamously tried to test on. You can do that in some limited cases. That is
Yeah,
not,
that reading the law kind of
yeah,
thing.
like
And
that's not applicable to him. He,
I don't think
sorry,
he'd pass the bar because you still have to pass the bar. The reason Kim Kardashian's not a lawyer right now is
didn't
because she
pass.
keeps
Yeah,
failing the bar exam.
right. And like,
And like,
it-
and listen, if he could do these 2 years of studies and he could do the reading the law himself and he could pass the bar, then I'd be like, cool, he's a lawyer now. But also, doesn't the bar have like a morality and ethics clause to it
correct.
that
And
filing 75 vexatious lawsuits would probably preclude him from?
And funny enough, like the felonies, they might overlook some of that if he was able to explain it and kind of give some context to it and things like that. Because
Oh, this was 10 years ago. I was
yeah,
a younger man
and
and blah, 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 and I made a mistake.
honestly, there's plenty of times in which you kind of want that out of attorneys because they kind of understand the process, having been on the other side of it. But
Yeah.
in his case, like no, nothing here is going to get in. Moreover, the fact you had a fraud charge, that's a really big issue because that's a character and fitness issue writ large. I mean, that's a big one.
I do not want, and it's like the I saw that meme recently of which one of these TV lawyers do you want representing you? And one of them was Saul Goodman, and one of them was Harvey Specter. And it's Harvey Specter if I'm innocent, Saul Goodman if I'm
Yeah,
guilty.
right.
You want the fraud lawyer when you're
And
guilty.
like
You want Harvey Specter when you're doing everything right.
And like it's funny because a lot of legal rules governing lawyers, like the law governing lawyers, is predicated over how trustworthy you are with taking money, doing good work, things like that. So stuff like fraud is a big deal. More so, you could probably, and I'm exaggerating a little bit here, you could probably kill someone and they'd be more comfortable with it than if in the past, as opposed
Yeah.
to committing fraud because it's such a big
Yeah.
deal for lawyers. So the fact that he seemed to think
It's
this is
kind
not
of the
relevant,
entire faith in the legal system, and
yeah.
you committed the one felony that's about not following that.
And when you go look at like
You're allowed to lie in U.S. law, but you did it in the only way you're legally not allowed to,
it's
dude.
just terrible. Like, and granted, maybe that case is bunk. Go prove it. Like, go get it expunged.
Yeah,
But like, right now, I don't know.
yeah. He says up here, just for you, just so you can respond to this. Most people would tell you to talk to a lawyer, but I know that's a scam. Now, in your professional opinion, since he says attorneys are scams and lawyers are scams, do you think he should seek the assistance of a skilled
He
attorney?
needs to seek this like ASAP. I mean, if he has valid claims, he needs someone who's dispassionate from this thing like right now to be able to form this. Because what I have seen from
Yeah.
him in terms of the actual filed complaints, even if he has a good case, he's not presenting it remotely as well as he should. And in some cases,
Mhm.
he's kneecapping himself. So like someone else
Yeah.
needs to step in for him. Like if I got in trouble, I would hire another attorney. I am an attorney and hire
Yeah.
another attorney.
The worst, the lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client.
Bingo.
Uh, um, would you represent him based on
Oh
everything you've
God, no,
seen?
yeah.
Do you think any reputable lawyer would represent him based on everything that you've seen?
My suspicion in part is when he mentioned before about going to law firms and them telling him no, he probably asked them also for, contingency fee cases, which those guys are really going to
Yeah,
look at
one of
later.
the things he complained about was that they actually wanted to charge a retainer, which
Yep.
is kind of like, yes, you charge that retainer, a contingency fee if you think you have a winning case, but
Like,
and if that winning case is going to be enough money to cover your man hours.
right. And in that case, you're not going to get a lot of money if you're a client because man hours can be a lot to get this stuff done. But it's
Yeah.
kind of funny because in some ways, if he has a valid case on the criminal side, there are free options for him. On the civil side, granted, if it was a strong case, you could probably find some contingency fee attorneys. If not, then yeah, you're going to have to pay for it, unfortunately. Like that is a
Yeah.
flaw of our system, is not quite free. But there are actually clinics at local law schools that will take it up if they see your case being valid. So if he really
Yeah.
has a good one, you go to those clinics. I
Or you
suspect
got that bottom rung student that's just barely about to pass, and the professor wants to get rid of them, and they're like, "Hey, guess whose case you got? Kyle Owens."
And like
If
honestly,
you-
those clinics can be really good too. Like there's one local here that does a lot of IP stuff. They do fantastic work. So if he
yeah.
has a good case, there are options available to him where someone else can take it for him and do it in a better way that does not involve going to ChatGPT, copying, pasting, and then filing.
So the fact that a series of lawyers have told him no is probably indicative of the validity of his
And
cases,
look, like
or
lawyers,
potentially indicative of the validity of his cases, because there is the possibility that they were just overwhelmed and they couldn't take
yeah,
on the case.
and I've been
But
in that situation where I've not been able to take stuff just because it's too busy. But like oftentimes, the fact that you keep getting rejected should be assigned to you, especially on the contingency front. That maybe they're not believing what you're telling them, and perhaps either you're not phrasing your situation correctly, you're not presenting
mhm.
correctly, or maybe you're just wrong. Like
There is also the fact that by his own assertion, none of those law firms looked super busy, and they still told him no. So if there's a struggling law firm, that's like we're not getting a lot of work, and this guy came in and he wants to hire us. What does he want to do? No, never mind.
Yeah,
I'll eat ramen for the next month rather than represent this
totally.
guy.
Because
Like,
and you just know deep down inside he'd be a very pain in the butt client.
yeah.
Unfortunately, you know deep down inside that the way he's characterizing himself, posting online constantly, he's adding more issues. No lawyer's going to want to take him when he's constantly adding the funeral pyre of his cases.
But we've been recording for 2 hours and 42 minutes, minus the 10 minutes that we lost from just
Technical
OBS
stuff, yeah.
shitting the bed, because that's what happens. Do your outro plug. What do you want to
Yeah.
plug? You got a new Kirk Sigmund recently formed his own law firm that is more focused on video game
Yeah,
law.
candidly. So, long story short, I don't normally do kind of a, weirdo case law like this, but it's kind of fun. So, I recently founded a firm with two of my colleagues. We do everything from IP to tech law to AI law. I have developed an AI platform that allows people to do legal analysis. It's all in-house, local, and not on LLMs. But the basic idea is that I'm always happy to talk to people who genuinely have technical legal issues. We do so for free. Part of the reason we split off is that we provide we're able to help you where you're at. I work with a lot of indies. The reason I was in Poland is we're talking to a lot of indie game companies who normally can't hire the big law firms, so we go meet them in the middle. We work with them where we can. So, I really mean it. Like, don't feel hesitant to reach out. I can help. I mean, at minimum, I can tell you if I'm not the right guy and point you in the right direction. It's not something that a lot of law firms will do. And I'll tell you if I think you don't have a good case. I've just recently talked to a guy and I told him, yeah, sorry, I don't think this is a good one for you. So, I'm always happy to help. This community's fun for me. The game stuff is fun.
And
Games lost fun. It's all kind of a
and what's
blast.
the law firm called?
It's called Keldan. So I didn't put my name on it because I my usual policy is that you got to be dead to have your name on a law firm. So my
That's fair.
colleagues
That's
don't agree
fair.
with that. That's why their names are on there. But
I can put the link in the description in the pinned comment. That way, if anyone does have IP law, basically, if you're not picking up on what he just said, he's the good guy in the IP law side of the house, working with the indie studios and the people that can afford big law
yeah,
firms. So
and at minimum, I
there
can
you
I can
go.
send basic information to people to kind of give them to know what to do. Like half the time, it's just incorporate, get a trademark on what you're doing, be careful, get your Coke programmers on a contract, and you're good to go. I will not charge you
Yeah.
money until I absolutely have to, basically.
And I same outros all the time. I'm working on the prior art database that should be launching sometime in July. It's going to be a largely volunteer based thing. There's information in the pinned comment in the description. I also have two side channels that I'm working on right now. Runga Storytime, where I'm talking about a lot of stories from my life. Like if you want to hear about the time I got kicked out of the Hard Rock Cafe, that's there. If you want to hear about my worst boss, that's here. If you want to hear about the time that I had a Navy chief try to tell me that you cannot navigate based on the moon and stars, that story is on there. That one is, I'm not kidding you, a Navy chief, someone that had been in
Uh,
for 12 years, tried to tell me that you could not navigate based on the moon and stars when I was doing land nav. It was ridiculous. And on the other channel on Runga Extra is the rants and other random stuff that I like to talk about. That's not necessarily the analytical type of stuff I go on here. You get to see me get a little bit more unhinged. But with that, goodbye, thank you, and fuck Nintendo, but also fuck Kyle Owens.